Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel here is on YouTube is Discerning What is True. I am also on Odyssey, and I'm also on Facebook Live. Today will be today's the first day of December. This will be our last show, as far as I know, with Phil Langdon of this year. So it won't be till in January. We'll probably do other shows with Phil, but at this time, this will be the last show for Phil to be live. And we all basically what I'm trying to say is something. I record all these particular programs on YouTube, so you can always go to these my page, Discerning What Is True, and then what you can do is you can download those videos or watch them, whatever you want to do. So just want to make that aware to all out there. So Phil, just tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, did you, that type of thing.
Sure. I'm Phil Langdon. I'm from London. I'm 53. I had Ascension 9 years ago in 2014. I have a degree in applied mathematics, and I'm effectively a philosopher. If I had to categorize myself, I'd say, right, I'm a philosopher, because that's what I spend most of my time on.
Okay. Can I ask a quick question simply? You said applied mathematics. What does that actually mean? I mean, does that mean you're a math major, or is that a fancy name for just being into math, or is it more than that?
Well, there's pure mathematics and applied mathematics. So pure mathematics is the purview of almost geometry and theology and philosophy. It's applicable to the intellect. It's like intellectual correctness, if you like, or logic. It's pure logic.
Okay.
The question is, does pure logic actually apply to the real world? Because the real world is very messy, it seems. So
Right.
the subject called physics is mostly mathematics applied to the real world. So we want to categorize aspects of the real world in terms of pure logic, so that we can understand it. So applied mathematics is pure mathematics applied to the real world, basically. So you can see how it works in terms of the actual reality.
Okay. Okay.
Very useful. Very useful.
Did you go to Cambridge or some of the schools there, or where do you go at, Phil?
I did mine in London University at a site called Egham, which is just outside London. It's right next to Windsor. Windsor, where the Queen has a residence.
Yes, I recognize
right.
that name.
It's a very it's a French-looking castle. The main building called Founders Building. It's Royal Holloway, basically. It's actually called Royal Holloway and Bedford New College, but it's an annex of the London University group.
Okay.
There are quite a few
it's like
different.
An extension. Okay.
Yeah, I could have gone to King's College in central London in the Strand, but I didn't want to be in central London because of all the pollution and the hectic nature of it. It's in the countryside, my site, as it were.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Nice and peaceful. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So is it a 4-year university? I mean, you get when you go there, is it a 4 years? You get a graduate degree, bachelor's?
No. We do 3 years. You can do an extra year. That's called a master's, and then you can do a PhD, which is 3 years. So I just did the 3 years, but I took 2 years out. So at the end of my second year, I took 2 years out, and I studied Kabbalah and ancient wisdom and religions in that time, so that when I went back to my third year, I had a great big load of stuff that I could compare with what I was going to be studying in my third year.
Okay,
now,
so go ahead.
Just to say, I kind of did that on purpose. Once I discovered Kabbalah, I thought, oh, this is going to be really interesting to compare with physics and mathematics, because it's very much like that.
Right.
So that's what I did. And I knew about Stan Tenen at that point, and I was comparing his stuff with geometry that I was learning as well. I did a course in my third year called Discrete Mathematics, which is very much like Kabbalah, very close to Kabbalah, in fact. It's points and lines, and it's the rules of points and lines.
Okay.
It's very, very simple. You don't need to be a third year major to do that. Most people can study that quite easily. It's funny because things get simpler. The higher you go, the simpler they get. It's bizarre.
Well, that's because you have a good foundation of what you are taught. I mean, that's why you're saying it's simpler, because I'm guessing your first 2 years you went through a pretty rough time, or I'm just guessing a rough time. And then what happens simply is that you've got a good understanding of everything. You've got a broad base, a foundation, and then it seems simpler. Well, yes, it does, because you already now your mind is able to understand what to do, how to apply it, type of deal. So that's my
Yeah.
guess.
They did something in particular in the first year. You basically get to when you're in college, and we do A levels in college before doing degrees. The material of the A level, most people get it 60% or 70% in their exam. So in the first year at university, they want you to be able to get 100% in that exam. So the first year
Oh,
is kind of covering that again with extras, and then in your second year, you do all new subjects like vector calculus, which
okay.
is a fascinating subject. It's immediately applicable to pretty much everything out there in the world and the universe as a whole. They use it in cosmology.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating stuff. It really is. It's so engaging and absorbing. Once you're in it, it's just a wonderful world of interest and fascination. It really is amazing. It's
So,
one of the best things I've ever done.
sorry.
No,
Uh,
that's right.
Here in America, it's basically, do you choose your, we call it your major. We call it your major. That is, okay, so you're going to major in political science, da da da. And then they have a curriculum, what you're supposed to take the first year, the second year, all these grades, all these grades. When each year you go, there are what they call semester systems here.
That's right.
Um, okay, so you go to class. When I went to class, it was if you went to Tuesday and Thursday class, it'd be an hour and 15 minutes. If you went to a class called Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, it'd be 50 minutes long. So that's how they added up the hours, and it would be what they call, if you passed the class with a C, actually you could get away even with a C minus or even a D. But
Yeah.
you would pass the class and get credit union. But if you did not, you would get 3 credits or 4 credits, depending on what that particular class gave you. In other words, the higher you went up, you would have what they call 100 level, 200 level, 300 level type of thing. And your 300 and 400 levels were your junior senior years of your college years, and you
Yeah.
would be taking those particular courses, such and such. But it's just interesting, basically, the way it went here, and it may be different. You probably could do the same thing. Here is a 4-year system, um, and it's based upon semester. There were at that time what they call quarterly systems. That is, at another college across the border here in Georgia, they offered what they call quarter system. That was what they were on. So they stayed what we call, see, like, I know I'm going a little bit in it. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But anyway, the point simply is that we would have spring and summer semester. We'd have 3 semesters, basically: winter semester or fall semester, spring semester. And basically what you did, you took 12 to 15 hours in those 2 semesters. So you want to get 30 hours equivalent of each year. So you would
Mm.
have eventually 120 credit hours to graduate. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
And the quarter system was that basically you went the whole year round. You went, from fall, spring, and into summertime. Now you could take classes here in the summertime if you wanted to catch up or go get ahead or whatever way you want to do it. And they would be basically, I think, a month long, and they would be a quick courses. You would go 3 or 4 days. I think it's 4 days out of the whole week type of thing. And
right.
it was be a very rapid way of doing things. So you had to write things and do stuff. So it was just done differently. I took it different ways, but I had plenty of energy when I was a kid at that age.
Mm.
So I worked full time and I went to school full time.
Yeah.
So I worked second shift. I worked from 4 to 12 at night, in the
Yeah.
evenings, and then got up approximately 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and went to class from 10 to 2, and then back to work. So I don't know how I found all the time to do what I did, but I remember in my political science classes, one thing was that we had to write papers. It wasn't always taking tests. It was writing papers,
Yeah.
especially in the international affairs and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Right.
um,
Just to finish off saying about that, I did maths and physics 50-50. So I was in 2 departments in my first year. You can change your degree as you go here. So in my second year, I was 3/4 maths department, 1/4 physics. And then in my third year I was only in the maths department, and they didn't know what to call my degree, so they simply called it mathematics.
Okay. Okay.
I ended up doing quantum mechanics twice in 2 departments, which was fun.
What do you mean by it, you took it in 2 departments? Is it 2 different courses, or is it the same course?
Well, in the third year in maths department, you do mostly applied mathematics. So I did magnetohydrodynamics,
Okay.
which is fluid flow, and then fluid flow in magnetic fields. So you can apply it to the sun and planetary stuff and cosmology already. I also did stellar structure in the maths department, which is bizarre because you model stars using the gas law only. So it's so complex. So they haven't got time to get you into the electromagnetics of stars yet. So just that course is just only about applying the gas law, and you can derive most of what we know about stars just from that, funnily enough.
Oh.
Anyway.
I know you say, so when in reality you were, which I know this is true, but I'll just make it clear, I guess. You didn't go to college to basically get a degree and then go to work. Okay,
no,
so
no.
you're quite what I would call a different one. You're probably what I call in America probably less than 10%, if there's even that much.
Yeah. People didn't believe that I was there for the reason I was there for. So funnily enough, in my third year, every single maths class was full of females. Every student was female. There were 30 females in a class, and I was the only guy. All the men had left.
Well, they left because they went to work. Is that right?
Yeah, no, they didn't want to finish the degree, so they just all left.
Oh.
So it was just the women who were left, and they're the ones who plod and keep going.
Oh, so the men were the ones that kind of trocked out, and the women were proficient, kept working.
Yeah, and all of them wanted to become primary school teachers. Every single one.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. I remember you telling me that they were going to be school teachers.
Yeah, that's it. So when they asked me, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm going to use it for my personal benefit. What do you mean? Well, I'm developing myself and my understanding of the universe. That's all. I'm not going to get a job with it, you know?
They'd probably look at, are you some kind of weird person here? You know,
yes.
That's what
they thought I was crazy.
Right.
I'm not crazy. I'm the most sane person. I was the most sane person there.
Well, people do things for jobs, you know. So, but anyway, I've kind of kind of got off subject here. So, I see that Salatos already asked a question here. I don't know. Do you think the base 10 decimal or metric system has had an effect on our thinking or the way that we interpret it or relate to the world compared to the base 12 or imperial system? That's
right. I know what you're saying. The old imperial system is basically goes back to Babylon and the 360-degree circle concept, which is very, very pure mathematics in a sense. It's like pure mathematics. It's pure logic and pure philosophy using logic. The base 10 system is much more based on, it's a different kind of measure. And they do say that the length of a meter has come from the measure of the Earth. So it's just another way of looking at measuring systems. That they're both valid. Has it had an effect on us? Well, I don't know really. I mean, no, most people don't learn from whatever systems they're using on the street. You know, if you're exchanging money, and in England it was all the imperial. It didn't mean you were an expert on mathematics or where it came from or anything, you know. I don't know whether it has affected anything really, to be perfectly honest. It's just a way of measuring that's slightly different, you know. And we were all aware of the imperial system anyway. We didn't really go into it. I did do history of maths, which is fascinating. But as soon as I saw there was an entry in the history of maths about the Great Pyramid. And you know, the Great Pyramid is full of measure and all sorts of things. You can derive the distance from the sun, between the Earth and the sun, from the Great Pyramid. See, all the measures that are important are encoded and embedded in the Great Pyramid. It's like a library in stone. for humanity to sustain
Wow.
the information beyond, generations. That's the idea of it.
When you when she says here the imperial system, I'm assuming it's back the old way, what we call the fractional system here in America, which is we're the last pretty much country that is major country that still uses that. Everybody else has gone to the metric system.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
That changed here in 1970.
wow. Wow.
Yeah,
I remember they started pushing this back when I was in high school in 78, or graduate 78. So they were already starting to introduce it to us, but they never went any further. I mean, it's still, when you buy a product, so to speak, it's in metric and in fractional. It's, so many ounces, okay,
yeah,
and then
that's
so
right.
many. Okay, so it's on both. They force these companies to basically put both on there. So they have to put the fractional system on there, and they have to put the metric system on there.
And that's all based on the idea of having a unit. You must define your unit
Right.
in the first place, because then the unit becomes the standard of measure. So there's an imperial standard and a metric standard. They're both valid, but they're slightly differently defined. That's all.
Right.
You know.
Right. We would just, we would always, the fractions were the key for us, I guess, basic. But the point that has never been. I mean, that's been as far as they went. I think there was a push to many companies that hated it because, we got to spend extra money now to put something on here on a label
Yeah.
and say such and such. It's like it's totally meaningless to us because we don't do that here in America, so to speak.
Right.
But I understood it simply. I thought that what their whole plan was to eventually lead us to the metric system, and there was a pushback in the 80s or whatever type of thing. No, we don't want to do this. And at that time, I think only a few countries were doing that. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off subject here.
That's right. That's
But
okay.
one of the questions we were talking off air, that is me and Phil were talking about, was to talk about a question that Mr. Menzies spoke about yesterday, was to do with the Kaya Yoga. I forgot how to pronounce
Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga.
Yoga. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And was it to do with what I would call, we're in I assume we're still in the age of Aquarius, but the next age we're supposed to go in, not the age of Aquarius, but the age of Pisces, and moving into an age of Aquarius. And there's roughly, what I understand, it's almost 26,000 years. In other words, the whole astrology chart is approximately that. It's not quite. It's like 25,920, I think it is.
Right. Right.
So,
but the yugas are very long periods of time, like 435,000 years of Kali Yuga and this sort of thing. But you see, this material comes from the Vedas, which are thousands of years old.
right.
And back then, people had lots of time in India to study and pursue these things, and you had people meditating on it all the time to expand mankind's knowledge of reality and all this sort of thing. But in today's world, we can't verify these yugas. It's impossible to scientifically verify them. So all we've got is the word of the people who wrote the Vedas. So when Steve, for instance, asked about that, the second question that Steve came up with was, can you tell me about the Kali Yuga? And I was trying to get to a point where I could say, well, you can't verify that. It's impossible. It's somebody else's idea that you're presented with, and they're saying, well, there's a period of 400,000 years. Well, that's way beyond anyone's lifetime. We haven't got time. We haven't even got time to verify that. But it's a bit of a misnomer. You don't need to bother with that. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
Okay.
No difference whatsoever to anything, really. It's just a way of categorizing periods of time on Earth and humanity and what have you. Things go great, then things go bad, then things go great, then things go bad. It goes like a wave over long periods anyway. And it makes no difference to your potential to ascend or whatever.
Right. That's what I was curious about. There's so much talk about this. You hear it some people talk about it. It's like, okay. And then what happens is, well, I'm not here, but only, 70 years, whatever years, how many years I'm here. What does that mean to me?
Yeah. It doesn't actually make any difference to anything. So we're in Kali Yuga. I mean, who cares? The world is a terrible state anyway. But your personal life has nothing to do with that. You can get on with your personal life. You know,
Right.
just because
Right.
there's a war halfway around the world, it has nothing to do with you. You know, just get on with your
Right.
life.
Get on
That's
with your
part
life.
of Kali Yuga, apparently. The fact that we're warring with each other and killing everybody and all that sort of thing. You know, it makes no difference to your pursuit of your own self-realization, let's say.
Right. Right. Uh, I've got some questions here. A couple
Yeah.
questions. I've got some here on my card here. What do you? Why? Basically, this is a question. It's kind of basic, but we've never talked about it. Why do we have siblings? That is, certain siblings, like brothers and sisters and parents. Um, are Do we basically sign a contract or something of that nature once we come back here? Before we come back here, we want to accomplish certain things in our lives. I'm guessing that. Are they themselves? Two questions here. Why do we have them? And are they here to help us? In other words, iron sharpens iron. If you know that scripture verse somewhat, you iron sharpens iron, so to speak, to make you into a better person. That's what we were told in scripture, to be a spiritual person or whatever. So when you had someone to confront you and say, so and so here, you did this, can you explain why you did this? Not because I'm being nosy, but I'm concerned about your spiritual walk. And what it meant simply was that, are you still practicing the Christian life, so to speak?
Mm.
If you remember, again, that's just based upon, but I'm looking at something they always say are, we brothers need to be accountable to brothers, sisters need to be accountable to sisters, meaning, that was just how they taught us. And so what I'm trying to say simply is iron sharpening iron, meaning simply is the siblings in our lives, our parents, all that, are they also beneficial? Are we all beneficial for one another in that family unit, so to speak?
Yeah. If there is a logic to this, the only source you can get to answer a question like that is if you choose your family, is near-death experiences, who many of whom, excuse me, have come back and said that we actually choose our families that we're born
Right,
into, and we
right,
choose the basic idea of the life that we're going into. And the purpose of such a thing would be that in one lifetime, you can only achieve certain things on Earth because it's so short.
right,
If we lived 1,000 years, we'd all become ascended masters, but we don't.
right,
We live an average of 70 to 80 years in
right,
total, and you can only get a certain amount of things done. So then when you leave, you have to come back and do more, so to speak. So, and the purpose of which is to complete yourself.
right.
Self-completion means literally building heaven for yourself eventually. Um, there's a lot to say about where I've been, and I've done this before, for instance, so it was easier for me this time to do it. But I can't prove that. But yeah, apparently we choose our families, and the circumstances that we're going into are going to be such that they're going to help us learn the thing that we need to learn. For example, if I'm born into a narcissistic family, I'm going to have to learn forgiveness.
Right.
I have to. Most people find this forgiveness concept extremely difficult because they take everything very personally. They
Right.
take problems in the world personally. When someone does them wrong, they take it personally and they want revenge. You have to learn to see above that. And that means expanding your understanding of actual reality beyond just physical nature. And that is a great challenge for anyone because there's no proof.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
where
no
is God? People say, "Where's God? Prove
right.
yourself to me, God. Come
Right.
on,
Right.
appear in the sky." Well, that's
Tell
not
me.
going to
Tell
happen,
me.
is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, God,
I've
God
done
is.
that.
Everyone
I've done
has,
that.
Luke.
I'm just
Everyone.
being straightforward. I've done that. Hey, are you real? Are you real? Prove
That's
yourself.
right. That's
Yeah, but
right.
yeah. Who are you?
Yeah,
Who are you,
but
Brant? So
it boils down to real true understanding. Do you understand the nature of God instead of just assuming that God is something that you think it is? Is it a separate being? Is he going to appear in the sky and all this sort of thing? And then you read the scriptures and they say, no, God is within you.
right.
God is your personal potential. God is the
Correct.
fullness of your potential self-realized in you.
Yeah, the key you just said was potential. You just said something I think is key word, because people take this and they do understand somewhat of what I would call, yes, God is within me, such and such, but they take that as though they're already somewhat arrived spiritually, and that's not true.
No, no,
They think that is okay. Yes, me and God got a thing going on, and we're together, such and such, and working out. But there is no what I call personal integrity or focus on what I would call the meat and the potatoes here in life. It's just a kind of a not a fairy tale, but a somewhat what I call is not taking it in a realistic view. It's just simply a cloud mentality, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. You just instantly reminded me of a scene from a Woody Allen film called Sleeper, where he's awoken 200 years in the future, and he's being asked by somebody in the future to explain some old photographs and what it means and who these people were, and they show him a picture of Billy Graham. Remember Billy Graham? Right, and he says, yeah, this is Billy Graham. He was personal friends with God. They used to go out on double dates together. So,
I know who Billy Graham is, because he's now passed. But I was going to say, I even went to hear him in the stadium here long ago, back when I was like 20 years old. He was a preacher such and such. He was trying to bring people to Christ, such and such. You come forward and all that, which is typical what I would call Protestant Christianity. And but yes, he was always as though he was highly revered by certain presidents in our country. Jimmy Carter, I think, was one who did that. And I think in other times he's been invited also. I don't know if it's Ronald Reagan, but anyway, it's just kind of interesting that he was the epitome of what some people do in Europe would be the Pope, you see, here in America. I don't know if you understand that. Although he didn't wear fancy garb as the Pope would wear, but he was treated with like almost as though he was royalty in some ways,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I was just thinking of that simply as that the idea that people think, they have this fairy tale worlds. I don't know if it's a good word, but God and me are together, such and such, but they don't. It's up there. It's not down here living on this plane, working it out, so to speak. It's not. It's just a fantasy sort of way. I'm okay, but they don't understand that. You gather what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. There's a tendency to see God as somebody in the sky, because there's a lot of associations, a lot of subtlety in Scripture. Your subconscious is subtly being told that God is in the sky.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because there's an association with the element air.
Yes, air.
Right, but because religious Christianity rejects the esoteric world, they don't realize that the four elements are associated with your four bodily centers, and the head center, your head, directly associates with the element air.
Right,
because it's the lightest.
It's the highest point of your body. Also,
Yeah.
air.
And not just that, the idea of thought and thinking, contemplating geometry, for instance, the squaring of the circle is an ethereal concept in the air. See, and of course, truth is found here, and truth is represented by a sword, and you swish a sword in the air.
Right.
It also cuts through things, and just like the truth cuts through lies.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, so there's these symbolic associations with the sword, the head, the air, and the truth. They're all unified as one idea, but they have different expressions of the same concept. So subtly, we just automatically think that God is in the air, which basically means that God is realized in your air element, which is in your head, which is where Jesus Christ is literally born.
Right.
But God is within you as you are a singular entity in a dualistic framework, body. And that's your singular nature. You need to turn your attention back on your singular nature and realize you are not the physical body, and you will become one with God as a result, in very simple terms. So God is the fullest realization and fullest awareness of you, the individual, that you are part of this thing called spirituality.
Yes.
The fullness of which we call God.
Correct. Correct.
But because of the association that God has with all things, we associate all things with God. So God is truth, God is love, God is sense and reason, seeing things clearly, clear-sightedness, clairvoyance in French, that is associated with being godly. Not esoteric witches doing witchcraft. You know, you know what I mean? The people think clairvoyance is witches reading tarot cards and what have you. No, clairvoyance is simply being clear-sighted. It doesn't mean you can tell the future. You can only tell the future when it's obvious.
Right.
But being clear-sighted means I can see that if somebody behaves a certain way, they're going to come a cropper. So that's not a prediction that there's in the airy-fairy. It's probably a guaranteed event because their behavior is taking them to that event. There are automatic consequences to our behavior. If I go around cursing everybody, someone's going to punch me in the face at some point. You know, that's guaranteed.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the idea of clairvoyance, that you know what's coming because it's just obvious.
Yeah, Layla's got a statement here. She says, I wonder how we regard God impacts how God shows up in our lives, so to speak. Example, either vengeful or loving versus loving.
Yeah, your attitude towards yourself and life. I mean, the way we treat ourselves is effectively how we end up treating other people. Because if I really like myself, then I'm going to be a pleasant person to be with, and I'll be able to like others. They'll like me, and I'll like them because they're responding to a nice atmosphere that you're creating by your presence.
Yeah, if you love yourself, honor yourself, and treat yourself well, that has enormous impact today, because most people do not do that because they're actually been taught by their call it their siblings or parents to see themselves as inferior, or something's wrong with them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got a visitor?
I was going to say that in amongst all that, regardless of what you're like, atheists, for instance, who totally reject the idea of God, have in fact had a godly. There are near-death experiences who were atheists, and they didn't realize what there was beyond life, and then now they've gone beyond life and come back, and they're all saying, "Look, you know, this is actually part of our existence. God is part of our existence. I didn't realize that before." But they didn't invite that to themselves by being godly themselves. They were simply atheists. They had a destructive event that showed them more than they knew before, and now they understand that God is real. So God doesn't always come to those who simply want to know God. He comes to those who might need a reality check.
Yeah, I was going to say simply, isn't that God's grace in some ways?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
mercy, because actually God allows, basically, it's kind of a you're steering and you're going down a direction here, and somehow as God has an impact and says, wait a minute, let me pull you back up here and get you back to what you need to be doing here, type of thing. In other words, I see that in some ways that God is, in his goodness, is taking interest in you and saying, excuse me, I need to get your attention here. You're not, this was not part of your path here. So you're being atheist. Although I find it simply as people who are what I call as an agnostic. Atheist at least has a opinion. Agnostic is one that stays in the middle of the road and doesn't go, I think this way and I think that way. And I was like, no, you're kind of, I call it, you're milquetoast. You're playing games with yourself, so to speak.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, they're kind of waiting for proof of something, I suppose, to make a definite, make a definite opinion, as it were.
Right.
Yeah.
I got another question here from Mr. Menza. Are there some things that the limited human mind is incapable of knowing / understanding, that even after enlightenment, he states?
Right, that's a very interesting question, because not only in the Bhagavad Gita, but in the Bible, you'll hear that you can know God, but you can't know God fully. And that's a very interesting statement, because it's pointing out the fact that God is infinite. Being
Right.
infinite, God is always going to have something that is brand new to you, because infinity goes on and on forever. So there's always something new, always. So enlightenment is nothing more than a milestone in your existence.
Okay.
It's a milestone. It's not the end of everything. I don't simply go to heaven and just sit there aghast in the pleasure of bliss forever and ever and ever. You know, there is a service attitude, a service concept going on there. Now you're in that position. You have nothing to lose. You gained everything. You're the richest man in the universe. So you're going to go and help other people attain that for themselves. And that is your service, to increase the wealth of God's family, so to speak. Yeah, this idea of not ever knowing God fully, you can know God because God has a persona. So the persona you can know as a friend, as another person, but God's totality is never ending, and you'll never find the end of it, because there is no end.
Yeah.
So you can know God in a personal sense, but in an impersonal sense, God goes on forever and ever, and you'll never get to the end of it. So you can never fully know God in this sense.
Well, I wonder if you would even have the capacity to even know all that with your own mind, so to speak.
No, because there has to be something new for you. Otherwise, what you know,
You would
the
blow
thing about
circuit,
existence,
speak
you need
somewhat.
something new in existence. You need to move on and develop, and you know, not just stagnate.
Right.
Because then you're just going around in circles. You're not developing like in a spiral that expands. That's more like godliness. Yeah. And think of how many planets there are in the universe. How many planets could you visit? There are trillions and trillions of them. You know, there's just a wondrous feast of fascinating new things to discover all the time.
Amazing.
It is absolutely staggering. It really is incredible.
We were asking, let's see, what's the question was supposed to, oh, I did actually watch last night. I did watch Jack and the Beanstalk.
Right.
And although I don't think it's a modern version, it wasn't about, I think it's a 10-minute long video. It was to do with Jack. I remember the part, so his mother told him to trade in a cow, which I thought that was pretty bad of a decision. I thought, why didn't she go to the market and sell the cow instead of him? That was taking a lot of, he's a kid. That's a lot of responsibility. He's already shirking his responsibility. But anyway, he traded the cow for these magic beans, so to speak.
Magic beans.
And he threw them out. And the next morning he woke up, and it grew up such as. But the point simply is he went up into heaven, so to speak, and he met he didn't meet the giant at first, but such and such. But the point simply is, he got away twice by stealing something. He stole gold coins when he first went up there, and then they ran out of gold coins, and so he went up there again, and he got the goose, I guess it would have duck, that was laying the golden eggs. So he got that, and then the third time he decided to go up. I don't remember what it was about, but this time it didn't work out because they found him. Both him and his wife, the giant, were not going to allow him to get away with it again. And so he pursued him and actually come down the beanstalk, so to speak, and they had to chop down the tree, so to speak, to get rid of the giant, in other words. But in other words, it's just a story, but the point simply is, maybe I just went off on a tangent here. I'm sorry.
No. It's all relevant.
But I think it's simply is that
all of it's relevant.
Yeah. See, I have once I had something else here that I got last night also on my phone. So I want to read this also, another conversation here with the same person that was we had yesterday. And I find it intriguing here, such and such. And if I can find it here for you, just wait for a second here. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe, I took it on a picture on something else. It's not on my phone. Oh, okay. I'll have to get that. I'll do that later. How about we do that later? Um,
Okay. Can we just comment on Jack and the Beanstalk, the little
sure,
story?
sure. I thought we was finished. I'm sorry.
So the elements of that story, the whole thing is about becoming an angel. That story, nothing more. So Jack is
Oh, okay.
Jack is a young boy. So
Right,
the idea is here you are, a brand new person in life. The purpose is for you to make heaven. Right.
right,
When you do these magic beans, is the most useful information. Notice they are beans, which are seeds.
right, right,
So
right. Good
uh,
point.
when the right seed is planted in you, a divine seed, it will grow your understanding. And
Yes,
when you eventually find heaven, you know the story of the strong man. This Jesus tells a story of, if you want to ransack the house, you need to bind the owner of
right,
the house first, and then you can
right,
ransack his house.
right.
Are you
I don't
familiar
remember
with
much
that
more of
story?
that. No, I don't remember. That's what I remember that part, but I don't remember what you're going to tell me. That's what you're
Right.
thinking.
So the giant at the top of, in the castle at the top of the beanstalk is the strong man who you have to bind, and
Ah,
that
yeah.
man is the creator,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
creator lives in his domain, which is technically is the abyss. So when you ascend to the abyss, you have literally overcome the creator. You have risen above his system, and you've found out his system is duality. And
Yes.
here you are using his demonic body. You're going to use this body as a singular entity to rediscover your own singular nature in its fullness. Oh, the
Yes.
cat. Sorry, the cat's here. Okay. Um, he goes up 3 times. You said the beanstalk.
Yes.
So
Yes. That's all
three is metaphysics. So he completes
metaphysics. Right.
metaphysics. Yeah, and he steals gold coins, gold,
Gold.
like the gold that the 3 wise men bring to Jesus the baby. Here's some gold.
Right.
It's
Right.
a gift of kings. Gold is the jewelry of kings, as it were. It's
Correct.
refinement. So there are 3 times he goes up, and then he chops it down. So he's canceling his connection to the Creator, and
Ah,
he's re-establishing his connection with Jesus Christ, who knows everything.
that's a very good. That's yeah. We need to do. I actually sometime with next year we should do these again. Maybe we should do some of these children's stories because I think it would be good just to everyone has watched these shows. You got to tend to your cat.
Yeah, he just wants to go out. I'll just let him out. Hang on.
Yeah, Phil's dealing with the cat.
That's all
Cat.
right. He doesn't want to go out. He just wants attention.
Well, does he want to be a cat star like you?
No, he's
He's
just
telling
sitting
me
there now, looking at
he's
the
doing
door.
that.
All right.
Yeah, I think maybe we could do something of that nature at the beginning of the year. Maybe we could do a show basically about what we call these children's stories, but show what I call the metaphysical part of what they mean spiritually for us.
Yeah.
Because all of us have actually listened to these stories, and we get the somewhat of the moral of it. And well, you're not supposed to steal the gold. You're not supposed to steal from people. That's what they said at the end here at the when I watched. It's not good to steal from others. Okay,
Right. Right.
that's the literal interpretation, but there's a higher quote unquote interpretation of what's being shared in these children's stories.
Yeah. The gold coins and the golden eggs. These are his inheritance. He's not stealing them. They're his inheritance for rising
Ah,
above the
see.
physical
So
nature.
that's how they mislead. Okay, so okay, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
we'll have to do a show like that in January.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
do that.
I've actually prepared a bit from the last page in a chapter in the last book I put together, which is on this sort of theme. I wanted to read this out because it's really important. I feel,
Okay,
if
sure,
that's okay.
sure.
It illustrates the nature of religious speaking in the Bible. When things are said, I'm going to read it out so you can see, and I'm going to tell you what a modern equivalent would be
Okay,
um, for those things. So we have
okay.
we have a quote here from Matthew 22:37 that says, Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So I'm going to read it out again, and I'll put in brackets what is really being said. When he says, thou shalt love thy God with all thy heart, that means goodwill and self-love, because God is within you. Therefore, if you love yourself, you are effectively loving God. Not love yourself as in, oh, I'm so gorgeous, look at me, I'm wonderful. No. No. Self-respect.
Right.
And with all thy soul, that means deep study to the reality that you're in. And with all thy mind is deep contemplation. So prayer is deep contemplation on the truth. See, so this is what is being emphasized. Know for yourself, in other words, know God for yourself. Well, that's what's being said. And I carry on. It said, this law can be stated and summed up entirely with love the pursuit of understanding truth and remain honest with thyself. With self-honesty or self-analysis, because you look at yourself honestly, like in confession in a Catholic church, you go to confession. That is proof. If you can confess your sins to a priest, you are proving that you are honest with yourself. You see, you see your own faults.
Right.
We discover true reality and remain true to ourselves. Even if we as angels reincarnate into another physical life to change and influence things in a certain part of the universe, we need to know and be able to redock at the island citadel of heaven when we have completed that life, because we can get lost even as incarnated angels, depending on what you're incarnating into.
Right.
We need to find out how to return to heaven during life. Our choices determine our overall outcome, even as angels reincarnated. If we focus on the issues of life by forgetting in birth and refusing to develop towards truth during that life, we end up with nothing more in passing over, simply. We haven't gained anything. As a non-ascended soul, a regular person, you might say, we would have to start again and reincarnate as usual. As an angel, the life we reincarnated into would not have made much, if any, difference if we stayed unconscious in that life. That's choice as well. And we would only be failing ourselves in the process because we've gained nothing, and the whole point of reincarnating was wasted. Right. So we as individuals always have free will, even if we're angels serving God. The idea of service of God means being true to oneself. There is always help available from on high, from our ever robust and constant true companion, who we call God, who manifests within our mind as we traverse the course of life with inspiration and ideas. It's up to us to respond to our minds with insight and action, if need be. However, because we cannot control the outside reality, things go wrong all the time. And this is what puts people off. They think things should go well, but it's not the point of being on Earth. It's how to deal with failure on Earth. That's a big lesson from coming to Earth. The best laid plans often come to naught, nothing, because other people. If you need other people to help you with the plan, and they fail you, right, your plan isn't going to come about. So we need to learn how to fail and lose gracefully, and accept it in the sight of the eternal non-ego of spirit. As much as how to win and succeed, recognizing it's but a play of gradients between two extremes in life. Without trying, we cannot make mistakes and learn from them. So making mistakes is a good thing. Gaining experience, learning how to find a leverage point within that generates heaven for us personally. Therefore, it's not the mistakes that count, it's how we deal with them that counts. Okay. Since mistakes are a necessary part of any learning experience, it's how we deal with them. This is the measure of our free will. What is our free will? Our free will is to see how things go and to make better choices as time goes on, to become wiser, effectively. You know, I'm going to leave the three pigs and the wolf until we come to it in January, I think, because that's a very interesting thing to go over. That's about making heaven and death. That story. So yeah, I just wanted to read that out. Okay.
Sure, no problem. Appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Kind of opens your mind. It comes to realization. I think we're all been told to be competitive We live in um, a world that we're all competing against one another somewhat, getting jobs in college, school, whatever. You learn, you're already in that mode, and you start out that way in some ways. Although a lot of it simply is competing within your own self, so to speak. That is, can I do these things, such and such. But the sad part simply is that we never actually we see failures though we've done something wrong.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
take it personally.
Yeah.
And then we start blaming ourselves. And part of that is to do with probably what I would call what our parents showed how they dealt with their failures. You see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
so I see that. Yeah, Layla has a couple of comments here. She says there is a fine balance in being in service and not doing it to the detriment of the self. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
I'm thinking what she's thinking about. Maybe she can correct me. We can also be somewhat of a doing stuff so much for others uh, to a point I'm thinking that it actually is detrimental. Meaning, if we allow people, and maybe I'm taking it wrong here, maybe it's my own issue. We allow sometimes people to run over us. That would be my struggle with that. So the part maybe that's my issue.
There's
Is I,
there's always
there's got to be. Yeah, go
there's
ahead.
always, there's always two extremes with the balance in between. It's the balance in between you need to find.
Right.
So overextending yourself for others' benefit means you're going to wear yourself out. But
yes, you will completely no longer take interest in yourself taking care of you. You'll be taking care of everybody else.
Right.
And people think that is the right way, when in reality that's also not loving yourself. And actually, Layla says something else here now. Actually, I didn't get it. She says it seems there is an element of balance in every choice we are presented with. So
That's
she
right.
has it right. She's correct.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And in the opposite sense, if you only take care of yourself and just completely ignore everybody else, that's the opposite extreme. Any extreme is never going to produce balance.
Oh, okay.
You need to encounter both and find out where they cross over, and that's a razor's edge. That fine line between the two is like a razor's edge. Yeah.
Yes.
Very, very refined. Yeah. Yeah. So you help others and yourself at the same time, but you can't let one overcome the other.
Yeah, you actually got to be aware of what you're doing. You can't be sleepwalking somewhat. Sometimes I know this in my own life that, I would do things for people such and such and be streamed that way. And then I would simply go, oh, okay, I'll pull it back. And now everything, I'm not going to take this. I just take care of me, I'm going to take care of me. I've got issues here. Okay. So now I've gone to it's like like the seesaw deal. I've gone from one extreme over here. Now I've gone over here to the other extreme.
Yeah.
And actually, reality simply is I'm not balanced.
Right.
I'm going to take care of me, and that's all I'm going to do. Or then you go to this other extreme. Well, I'm going to be loving such and such, and I'm going to help these people. Next thing you know, you're like, I'm doing this all the time. I need time for myself. Such and
That's
such.
right.
So there has to be balance. Correct.
That's right.
And it sounds very basic, but I think all of us have actually failed at it, if not many times at it. We want also to be liked. That's another fine line. We want to be patted on the back and say, "Oh, you did a great job, such and such." Da, da, da. And we do that, and I don't think it is not the right motive. Sometimes people do that too. We help people, and basically maybe the worst thing to do is to help them because they're not going to appreciate it, and then you're going to overextend yourself. Like, for example, I'm just going to jump off and say something. I have $10 in the bank, so to speak. Just for instance, but I decide, I have other needs in my life, but I give that $10 to somebody else, and then when I come to the realization that it wasn't the best thing for me to give them that $10, it would have been better for me to give them something different that is non-monetary, maybe a cup, a can of food, or such and such, which I have, instead of me giving them cash, so to speak. So I'm just giving an issue here, such and such, weighing the balance. Then basically I don't have $10 anymore. You see, So now how am I going to pay this particular bill? You see, so you know, that's how this holiday, you pull from one extreme to another extreme, and I can see all these things in some ways how we, and you grow up in these ways too. You say, okay, this is only, I can't do that. I can do this, but I can't do that. You see.
Yeah,
So
I'd sort of categorize all that with the word insecurity. Are you secure or insecure in yourself? If you're secure in yourself, you're going to make balanced decisions. If you're insecure, you're going to want people to like you because you
right.
feel as though that makes you happier. But really, happiness is an inside job. You know, it really is. You don't need other
Yeah,
people to make you happy. They can make you happy. It can be very, very
yeah,
nice to
it can
spend
hurt you
time with
too.
them.
You know, I mean, they could do both things. In other words, you are again, uh, you're looking to other people to make you happy when the reality is you must make yourself happy. You,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
uh,
There's also things about Jesus. They say his stories that he had to get away from people sometime to go on to be by himself
yes,
because
you
one
went to pray many times.
right,
You
you
don't
need time to yourself no matter what. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask, I'm going to talk about this thing we talked about yesterday because there's someone else, this same person has has some questions here, and I copied those last night for some reason. So it's just kind of interesting because I think they're really good. It shows you the ideas that simply are being proposed by other people
Mm.
and that I see as a issue. Okay, we talked about this yesterday.
Mm.
Um, it says this was put out yesterday. It says stop karma and reincarnation in this lifetime. That's what this particular person says. The power of thoughts and actions. Um, each thought, word, feeling, and actions, violence, and intentions carries a ripple effect, influencing not just our own path, but the shared journey to those around us. So here's the first thing she says is stop karma. So we've talked about this subject probably 2 weeks ago, maybe a little longer. I don't recall, but karma is, we don't get karma. This is a whole idea being taught, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we get karma from, we're told, comes from karma from our previous lifetimes. But that's not true. I believe that simply is we come in with a clean slate, you know.
Yeah, but when we mentioned earlier about reincarnating because you didn't have enough time in your last life to achieve certain things, and now you're going to come back and you're going to try and achieve those things,
Right.
you could call that karma. You
But
could say, well, that's a consequence. You didn't achieve it last time, so the consequence of that is you're going to have to go back and achieve it. So there is a
yes,
certain
you'll have to
consequence.
reincarnate again.
So
Right.
you could.
I
So
understand that part.
yeah, in that sense, you carry karma over, but it's not as if you murdered somebody in your last life, and now in this life, they're going to murder you to get their own back or something like that. It doesn't work like that. It's not about making things worse. It's about making things better. So
Yeah, that's the interplay. What you're saying is simply is like with justice. Like, for example, you did somebody wrong, and now you're going to get it in your life. You see, you're going to. But
justice is not the same as revenge.
no, it isn't. Revenge would be a better word. Correct.
Yeah,
Justice.
revenge makes things worse. Justice balances things out. That's why the justice scales exist. That's why that symbol is used for justice, because it's not revenge that would put things out of balance.
Right.
Yeah, justice is correctness, objective correctness.
Yes.
Correcting mistakes. Yeah.
So
stopping karma, by the way, the only way you're going to stop karma is if you meet God.
right.
There's no other way.
So let me just continue on here. Read another statement that's being read here. So ready to transcend the cycle of karma, reincarnation, and suffering. It begins with a profound realization every thought we harbor shapes our destiny. Then she says, cultivating positivity for liberation. To break the chains of harmful cycles, we must consciously, that is, channel our energy into nurturing beneficial thoughts and feelings by understanding the impact of our mental landscape, we paved the way. Last one here. We paved the way for a more compassionate existence. Let's embark on a journey of mindful living, creating positive currents that lead to liberation from suffering. And the book, anyway, that's for the last part of it. So I thought it was interesting in what she's saying here, but I hear this new age type of thinking here in this, positive, negative, such and such. That's my take on it. You can, again, like I said, you can deal with this, but you see how this is being taught in this particular area. So I thought I'd ask this particular question here about this, because this is being propagated by people these days.
Yeah.
And it sounds nice. It sounds nice and pretty and stuff like that. But is it realistic?
Well, let me say, when we understand something, we stop thinking about it. You see what I mean?
True.
So,
Okay.
so if I'm born and I'm a baby and I don't understand anything about the world is a weight on my shoulders because I don't understand it. So if I move towards understanding the reality that I'm in, I don't have to think about it anymore. So my mind is now clear and free to just be and explore better things, as it were,
Right. You won't be dealing with, right, correct. You won't be allowing that to hold you back, so to speak.
Yeah, it's not troubling you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we create karma when we're troubled, as it were, because we might do things because we don't understand and it creates a problem or a mistake. And then we have to do something to make that better.
Right. Right.
But that's all in the purview of not understanding. So when we understand, we stop thinking about it and we're clear-minded. Yeah.
Yeah, when we're clear-minded, we're no longer, we're not pulled down. We're no longer burdened by these, how the way we want to please people or do this and that.
There's no more insecurity. There's no more self-doubt because
Right.
you've met God. Damn well God is real. No one's going to convince you otherwise because you've experienced it. If they haven't experienced it, they can't tell you about it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
See, where am I at here with the questions? I'm going to ask the question. This is kind of a broad question. So, because another thing, I was a part of this at one point, and then I kind of looked at it a different way. But is astrology itself important? That's a big question. Maybe I've opened up a pack of worms here.
No. Personally, I don't think it's important at all anymore. It used to be because it used to be the old psychology, but now we have psychology, which is exactly the same, basically the same subject. It's not linked to Hermeticism anymore. It's simply the study of the human mind and how it works. But astrology is the manifestation of the human psyche. It's the issues of the human psyche. So the 12 signs of the zodiac literally represent your 12 noetic forces that are related to the four somatic centers.
You said 12 noetic forces. So what are those 12 noetic forces?
Well, they're associating with your mind, your heart, your emotional content, your desire here, and your physical senses. Right. So to specify what they are, they're actually characterized by the signs of the zodiac. And they all have different attitudes. So if you want to discover your noetic forces, you study the zodiac.
All right.
Because they categorize these forces. So like you were saying yesterday about Aries, the ram, it does things in a certain way. Well, that's an aspect of your own psyche. There's a part of your psyche that behaves like that.
Correct.
And there's another part of your psyche that can be more passive and more thoughtful, like the Virgo. The Virgo is a very thoughtful, passive, compassionate entity. So that I have the capacity in my brain to be compassionate, like Virgo. So it's simply recognizing the different aspects of your being in the physical world. You have all these different attributes, and we can categorize them as 12 identities. And there are 12 because everything physical manifested has come from the metaphysical seed. And that seed has a specific structure that will manifest in a specific way. Each one of those 4 identities in the metaphysics becomes a triangle of 3 aspects 4 times, and 4 times 3 is 12.
Oh,
so our brain, being a miniature version of the entire universe, effectively contains all of these aspects as 12 that comes directly from the metaphysical seed that is all of our source. Everybody is sourced from metaphysics. Everything is sourced from metaphysics. It's our root, it's our foundation. This is what is encapsulated in the Hermetic tradition that is kind of ignored today as something ancient and not worthy of study anymore. And of course, the attitude towards astrology is science is better. Forget that crap. That's the idea in the modern world, you know. But we have lots of astrologers, and they're constantly vilified by scientists who say what you're saying is complete bullshit. You're pretending to know what's coming in people's future. But as I said before about clear-sightedness, the future is written by the present, as it were. What is the content of the present? So if I have a bad attitude, I'm going to come a cropper in the future. I don't know exactly when, but you know, if I drive badly, I'm going to have a car crash at some point. That is automatically probably going to happen unless I change my attitude. You know, so yeah, these noetic forces. Noetic is just a Greek word for intellectual, and it simply means.
Yeah, that's what I kind of want to know. Yeah, okay, that was what I was trying to figure out, because I was like, I don't even know how to spell the word. I was thinking like, okay, it's noetically, was it got Noel in it? Noel?
Yeah, it means intellectual. So of the brain, it's the psyche. There's the structure of your psyche. It was confirmed by Carl Jung that the psyche has this structure. He used very old ideas to confirm the nature of the psyche in its automatic functional state and sense.
Yeah, because I was going to say simply here, next question, but you've kind of answered. We've talked about this also in the past to do with the 12 disciples. There wasn't any real disciples, but there are characteristics of these disciples that are in the Bible, and that's basically a lot of ways to do with astrology also.
And also, they literally represent your brain, the disciples. They're personifications of the 12 noetic forces. Yeah. So just to say, before we came on, I watched a video that is new evidence of the Shroud of Turin.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. That's been going on for like, what, 40 years now?
It was like a 16-minute documentary, and it was going back through in the Gospels. Jesus encounters Mary Magdalene after he's risen from the dead, apparently. And then he encounters these apostles and this apostle, and it's this one next and that one next. But really, all you're hearing about is a story of how when Jesus Christ manifests in your brain, that will affect every single one of your intellectual noetic forces. They'll all be influenced by that.
That's what took place with you at Angkor Wat.
Right. And that takes a little bit of time after the introduction of Jesus Christ, who appears suddenly. So the Gospels are really delineating the nature of what it is to be an illuminated person and how that affects your brain afterwards. This is also expressed in the book of Revelation. In the last few chapters, it tells you that once Jesus Christ is established in this somatic center, it will affect the other somatic centers one by one. And the devil lives in your lower mind, and the lower mind is associated with the heart and desire. So desire for self-gratification, for instance, is a devilish thing, supposedly, because it's not spiritually oriented as such. So it is going to have an effect on every other part of your body, but that takes a little bit of time. So the governor in every center of your body is no longer the devil. It's Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ. He's now going to have authority over every aspect of your physical nature.
And that Jesus Christ, in a lot of ways, was what we call what took place at you at Angkor Wat with your pineal gland coming to light within your own brain.
Yeah, that illumination came 5 days after. So Angkor Wat was simply meeting God and being immersed in the heavenly nature of God, and just the absolute beautiful nature of being in love with God as well. You absolutely fall in love. And when you fall in love, the depth of the falling in love is you can't go back on that. You know, so I will never not be in love with God from now on. If you see what I mean.
That would be simply is that God was basically, again, how would I say it? Would be basically appreciating you for what you've done in a way.
Yeah, he did. He did, because he said
A
for
way of simply coming across and hugging you, not just shoulder to shoulder, but actually one to one, face to face, and hugging, which is a different hug. You can get a hug over here, which is
yeah,
okay. It's a friendship hug, and it can be also this way also. But the friendship it comes together here is dynamic, and it actually brings the whole body. This over here is just a shoulder to shoulder type of thing.
yeah,
Just here is allowing someone to be themselves. I see that in the frontal part, but what I'm saying simply is what took place with you. God came in and says, you become worthy of this. In other words, I appreciate what you've done here. Da, da, da,
yeah.
da. All these confirmations of what you did. And then he basically, that's the first step. And the second step was when you had your 5 days later, when you came home.
That's right. Yeah, the funny thing is, God, when he comes to you, the embrace he gives you feels as though it's coming from every direction at once. So you are enveloped, completely enveloped in the most loving embrace you can possibly imagine, and it was full of gratitude. It was the overwhelming thing was that God was showing me gratitude, and I didn't understand that. And my not understanding it, I was looking at him in my mind saying, I don't understand why you're grateful to me. I haven't done anything special. And he
Yeah,
said,
I remember you saying that. Yes.
yeah,
Who am I? Kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he said, I'm showing you great gratitude for being honest.
And you're like, honest about what?
Yeah, he meant honest with myself,
Right,
completely
right.
honest with myself. And when you are that, it raises you above the physical level of retribution. You start understanding forgiveness and that you don't want to be carrying any weight, because God carries no weight whatsoever. He is totally weightless,
Yeah,
totally. And you become that weightlessness as
right.
well. And now you understand what it is, what it means. Oh, I see. I don't need to worry about the world and what that
Right.
person did to me 10 years ago. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Right. It
Yeah,
doesn't. There's no
not
sense in
do.
holding grudges too, because that
No,
also
you don't want to do that. You're carrying baggage if you do
actually
that.
causes. Pardon me.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. You're carrying baggage when you do that.
Yeah. Let's. Yeah. Right. Um. Um. What do you think is the biggest distraction? Kind of change the subject here a little bit. I wrote this down in the churches. Would it be the literalism that they're not looking at scripture esoteric in a spiritual way? I mean, they're thinking they're doing it spiritual, but it's in a literal interpretation of exoteric, the outside part, but not esoteric. Um, this question just popped in my head last night. What do you think is the biggest distraction in the churches, or what causes them today as I see it is, churches are no longer growing. I mean, they're not growing here in America, and I'm sure Western Europe has actually had this even before it's actually happened here in America, because there was a falling away probably in the 60s or 50s or even earlier than that with the churches. The people had actually, I'm done with this. I'm not saying the churches are dead. I'm just saying maybe they are. There are people still going there, but the point simply, it is no longer seen as a answer to people's issues or problems.
Right. Yeah. I think that's because the spiritual nature of what's really being conveyed is often missed. So some of them are understood, some of them are not. And when they're saying you have to accept what I'm telling you,
Right.
that is not good enough. If I tell you pigs can fly, you must accept what I'm saying. That I'm forcing you
Yeah,
to
yeah. I'm
accept
putting the gun
something.
to your head and saying you got to believe this.
Yeah,
Kind
you don't know if it's true for yourself.
no,
That's a
no.
problem. That's the problem.
And that's why I was saying to you when it was such a deal with me, how the churches use children's church or vacation Bible school for getting the children in, because the children are completely innocent. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand what is taking place around them. You
Mm,
see,
yeah.
because they're looking at things in a pure, innocent way.
Yeah, there is a good thing about showing Jesus as the example of perfection, but then they'll tell you can never be this perfect. So then what's the point of trying to get like that if you can't be like that? So
That's
what
right. Isn't that amazing? That's a good. That's a That's a. It's a. What's the word I want to say? It makes no sense, but it's a word for it.
an impossible goal almost.
Yeah, it's being it's saying one thing and not, and then I guess I wouldn't say that, but it's a
Contradictory.
yes, a contradiction. Yes, yes,
It's like a contradiction. Yeah. Nobody's perfect. The reason Jesus Christ is so utterly perfect is because he's not a human being. He is literally the Son of God, the most perfect creation there is. The cloud of heaven is the most perfect creation.
yes.
It's nothing short of perfect. No person can be perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest. Perfection, it sounds like your performance. Your performance is never going to be perfect.
You have the PER in front of it, perfect and performance. The prereceptive. Go ahead. Receptive.
Sorry, you need to be. You need to realize that it's not performance that is perfection. It's being honest with yourself that is perfection.
Interesting you say that, because simply as people put on a show, we all do it or have done
it. Exactly. That's exactly what happens.
That's what it's about. It becomes a performance.
Yes.
So your perfection becomes a performance, and no, you're not. Again, you're not real. You're like an actor performing on a stage, and that's not what life is about.
You need to make mistakes and be able to make mistakes and learn from them. That means you're not perfect in performance, but that's not the point. No. Look at media presentation. Look here, everyone here. This person's absolutely perfect. They're wonderful. Don't you want to be like that? Well, they're not perfect, because on YouTube it turns out they've got terrible problems, that we don't hear about in the media.
Right. Layla's got a couple of questions. I mean, actually, she says something here. Kind of at 10:15, she spoke, or anything that is out of balance. Then she makes a comment 5 minutes later, which is now. I feel that religion or cultural institutions implementing the idea of the need of an intermediate immediately may have restricted or limited individual endeavors. In other words, this is something, I guess, what she's saying, the idea of the need of intermediary may have restricted or limited individual endeavors. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, intermediaries are quite dangerous, because with a priest, for instance, hang on 2 seconds, I've got to let the cat out.
I hear you.
Right, he's finally gone. Okay.
He's finally gone. It's like he's gone.
A very attention-seeking cat. Okay, so yeah, intermediaries are always this is a real problem in the world. Gurus that mislead people and all that sort of thing.
They're just like preachers too. I mean, when we think about, we left the church, that the preachers, we go to what we call this other spiritual light, we call these gurus. Well, we haven't. All we've done is we just put ourselves back into what I call this whole issue, still under someone telling us how to do all these things, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And where's the proof? I mean, if they're going to say, look, here, I'm telling you the truth. Well, what truth do you know? How deeply do you understand the truth? Can you tell me about God? Are you going to say God doesn't exist? And are you going to pretend to be a leader of a group? That's a very dangerous thing. There's some guy, a young guy, I can't remember his name. He's an Italian. He speaks English, but he's in his late 20s, and he's a guru apparently, and he's got his own sort of cult or ashram that he's created, and he keeps presenting on YouTube. Everybody's smiling; they're all wonderful. The life is perfect with this guy, and it turns out he's a bit of a womanizer. And you think, well, hang on a minute, if you're supposed to be spiritual, there's no way that you're going to be a womanizer, because that's a low-level thing to do. What are you thinking? Right. You're not supposed to be interested in sex anymore and all that sort of thing. Sex for the sake of sex, that doesn't come into it when you're spiritual. You don't even think about it, basically. I'm in a relationship, but
actually, why would you do that when you're saying you're quote unquote risen above that? Because then it simply is that you're actually a phony.
Yes, exactly. You're presenting a good front.
Yeah. Again, it's a performance. You see, it's a performance. He's putting on a performance.
It's a performance.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Where's the honesty? And constantly smiling. Who
Yeah.
goes around constantly smiling?
Someone wants to get something from you.
Yeah, yeah. I just
I mean,
sat there
they
and
want
noticed.
something from you. I mean, I'm sorry. It's kind of what pops in my head. It's like a car salesman. I got something. I got a good deal for you. Well,
Yeah,
that might be a good deal for
yeah,
you,
yeah,
for me,
yeah,
so to
yeah.
speak. Yeah. Yeah.
I must say that the instant that I had the unification with God at Angkor Wat, I noticed what happened to my face. I was not smiling at all, not at all. My face just relaxed, and
Ah.
I've got pictures. Agatha took pictures of me. I was
Right.
absolutely just relaxed, just like
You
that,
have to
just as
share
you
that.
are.
You maybe share that one time. Maybe we could do that. You could share us a picture of what you looked like when you were
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
I
Oh,
would
yeah.
love
You
to
can
see
see
that.
it. You can actually
Yeah,
see
I
it.
would love to see that. That would be giving more proof of something that has happened to you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I'll
yeah.
send them to you, Brown.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's only a handful. There's only a few, but you'll see. You'll see. I'm not
Okay.
smiling. I'm not
Okay.
upset, but I'm not smiling, like grinning from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. No, you don't do that. You
What
relax.
What did your I'm going to ask this question off the cuff. What did your girlfriend think about what was going on with you?
She can't comprehend it. I've explained everything to her, and she gets the stuff that is self-evident. She was there at the time. She saw it happening, but she didn't know
Right.
what was going on. And I explained it to her afterwards, and she just accepts it and carries on. She's very practical. She's a
Uh,
paramedic, so she likes practical things, and she hasn't developed her ethereal sort of intellectual
right.
nature
Right.
to any high degree as such. But she's quite clever anyway, and
No,
she
I'm
understands
not.
what I said.
I'm just curious. Simply is that um, you know uh, this again was all by accident when you went there. There was no plan for you to go there. It was
It was a
uh,
holiday.
it was a holiday, and
That's it.
you were actually in Thailand. You were not in Cambodia.
That's right. We were in Thailand for 2 weeks. We rode elephants. We chilled out. We had a nice time, and then we went to Cambodia for the last 3 days to get Angkor Wat in. What the day before was a disaster, a complete disaster. Um,
Okay.
I should tell you this, but in Cambodia, they know you're a tourist, so they're going to take advantage of you. So they're
Oh
going to
yeah,
tell
you
you.
told me about this. The guy, I think you told me these guys that come along and they try to sell you rides. They'll take you such and such, and they want more money from you, and it really is worth it.
Yeah, yeah. Apart from that, the idea was that you spend one day going visiting the crocodile zoo.
Oh yes, yes, you told me about this. It's like a total waste of time.
It was the crocodile zoo was a square. We're on the river, and you
Right,
arrive on a wooden-made sort of platform that's sticking out from the land. It's on the river, so you get off your boat, and
right.
there's a square hole in this wooden platform with a tourist shop full of tourist
Ah,
stuff to buy. And
okay.
we looked down into this hole, and there were like 6 crocodiles at the bottom, just standing
Ah,
still, and they were all just staring up at us, like, "What are you looking at?" It's like, "Oh, that's
and you're
it.
like,
That's the
what are you
crocodile
looking at
zoo."
them for? You know.
It was a total. And the guy who took us down the river on the boat was 16 years old,
Oh,
and that's it. It was just me and her and this guy who was driving the boat, and there were these little long boats that people were using. The boat that we were on was causing incredible waves on this river. But if you're on a little boat, he said, "Do you want to go on a little boat and go amongst these little trees and stuff?" And we looked at the waves that we were causing, and if we were on that boat paddling, we would be capsized by the
right,
waves. So we
right.
said,
And
"No, thank you. That's fine. Can we go home now?"
yeah, because actually you're probably in that stream. There are actually crocodiles in that stream, correct?
Yes, yes, that's
Okay,
right.
well that would be a bad idea. Very bad
Yep,
idea. Let's go
terrible.
home.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's just go home. Okay.
yeah, yeah. The best thing about it is Angkor Wat. I mean, I'm not interested in the rest of the country. It's such a mess. You
Well, you're
know,
saying a 16-year-old, so obviously, you told me one other thing real quickly. If anybody's got questions here, I'm pretty much just about out of questions here. I got one more question, and we've got, I think 30 minutes here more, actually, for anybody who wants to ask questions. Someone, I know there are a couple of people here in the audience that have not asked the question. It is to your, if you think your question is, something wrong with it or whatever, no, there's no bad question here. Just it's best to ask to find out more.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, don't worry
worry about
about,
things of that nature. You see.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all.
No. So,
Oh,
what was I going to ask you? Now I've lost my thought. Oh, yes, because the people there, you told me, are very childish. You said that they, I think part of it simply is what's happened. I think this is all affecting the United States being involved in these countries. We were involved in Vietnam. We did bad things there, period. Very bad things. And we got involved in Cambodia, and we did bad things there too, folks. Really, very bad things. And the whole issue here is that their families, I'm going to be straightforward with you folks, their families were decimated. And so
that's right.
We talk about people who are very childish. What I mean is simply they didn't have any mama and daddy anymore, folks.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You see, we got to understand, we think, we have to look at the other situations and say, well, they act very childish. Well, the reason why they act very childish is because they didn't have a mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would actually ask people sometimes to watch the movie Killing Fields.
Yeah.
It will shake you up and realize that simply is that's what took place.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
And probably worse. But
yeah.
So in reality, this boy, he doesn't understand because simply that's his environment. He's trying to make money to put food on the table for maybe his parents or not maybe parents or whatever his life is, you see. And so it doesn't seem like much danger to him. But me and you, we're not interested in getting in the water and being with the crocodiles and the alligators. We know that's we better learn how to really swim real quick, or we're going to be lunch for those guys. And so
that's right.
But he doesn't see that. You see, again, he's very he's childish. He doesn't see that the responsibility that he has as a very young person. You can get in big trouble. You see. But anyway, Crocodile Mill. Layla says here, Crocodile River, a test of discernment. It's more discernment. It's basically life and death here, so to speak. But anyway, I've kind of got off tangent here, guys. I'm sorry. But I did ask you guys, the other people here, if you want to ask questions, it's more to your time because we're not going to meet till January. And so this is Phil's going to be quite busy in the month of December. So this actually, and I will not be able to talk with him for over near a month. So if you want to ask a question here, you need to ask. To your I have another question here, couple of questions here. And there any, Layla, if you want to ask a question. Okay, here it is. Okay, yeah, she's got a question. What does being childlike, that is not childish, mean? Does it refer to a kind of innocence and playfulness? Yes, it is. Especially when I'm saying it to do with like a 16-year-old boy. I would not recommend, even in America, if there were a crocodile, it was a river and a crocodile was in it, and it was a 16-year-old. No, it's going to be someone who's got some maturity, who's, because you got people here riding this boat, and you could cause damage to them physically. They could get killed or harmed. So that's what I mean by childish. It's not about being innocent or playfulness. It's just responsibility. And I'm not saying the 16-year-old is not capable of that, but what Phil is saying, no, thank you. Let's just get to the point where we can get out of this river here and just get to the hotel, so to speak. So
I mean, childlikeness. You can have childlikeness in an old man or an old lady. If they can relate to a child and be happier and not show off or not try and establish their authority over it and just be an equal, as it were. There's an equality in childlikeness that we have with each other, no matter what our age.
Yes.
That we can relate to each other. But if we become childish, everything becomes like a competition. And we're going to start saying, well, I'm older than you, so I'm cleverer than you, so you do as you're told and all this sort of thing. But childlikeness is an equality that we can all have, I feel, that is beyond the ego.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I associate it with not ego, childlikeness. Childishness is ego.
Yes, because I'm thinking of simply childlikeness is simply when we were very young and we were trustworthy and innocent at maybe
There you
3 years old, 4 years old.
go.
Until that, I think is eventually, what I understand from some people who look at this, that basically about 4 years old or 5 years old is where basically some of that child part begins to grow up
Yeah,
and begins to have to make decisions, so to speak.
yeah.
And
We
yeah, go ahead.
so just to say, we don't have to be overly serious. You know, comedy is a part of being childlike as well.
Yeah,
Enjoying comedy, you know, because people can get very serious when they get religious or esoterically involved in things and be overly serious. I think that's a problem. They lose track of comedy and just release, and the childlikeness allows comedy and fun. You
yes,
know,
right,
I feel if you can't laugh at things, if you've forgotten comedy, there's something wrong. You become too serious. You know?
right.
Yeah,
Actually, Layla made a comment yesterday after she wasn't able to come to our show, but she listened to part of the program yesterday we did, and she said, "Well, you guys were laughing and having a good time."
yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
were.
That's right. That's right.
I don't even know what it's about, but anyway, I'm glad we laughed. Uh, so the question I'm going to ask simply is, it's a generalization question. Uh, what do you see is the biggest stumbling block out there for people who um, do not actually pursue this in some way?
Yeah. In a short statement, I instantly think the illusion of knowledge.
Um, okay, so can you elaborate on that more in more
Yeah,
detail?
yeah, yeah. There's double-decker buses in England, in
Yes,
London. We have
yes,
double-decker, and they're painted red. Right. So
yes.
one day in the early 1990s, there was a newspaper in England that made lots of ridiculous claims. Right? And
Okay.
you might have seen Men in Black with the hot sheets.
No, I
Um,
don't.
right.
No.
Tommy Lee Jones tells
Oh,
Will Smith.
yeah, I know who Tommy Lee
Yeah,
Jones is.
he
Right.
says, right, we've got to check the hot sheets, and it's the worst tabloid newspaper you've ever seen in your life. A-
Okay.
Alien stole my husband's skin. You know, it's like, oh, come
Yeah,
on.
crazy stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
There's one here in
So,
America that does that too. Right.
yeah, yeah. So in our newspaper one day, they said red double-decker bus discovered on Mars. But, yeah, no, it
Right.
was a joke. It's
Right.
just
No.
right. So it illustrates this concept of the illusion of knowledge. Somebody mentioned the other day that they think, you remember John F. Kennedy, may he rest in peace. You know, I really liked him when he got shot.
Right.
Different people have different theories about who shot him.
Yes, there are
Right.
all kinds of conspiracies on that one. Correct.
Right. So if somebody thinks his own wife shot him,
Yes.
that's complete nonsense. It's a fabrication. But that
Right.
person believes it with all their might.
Right.
Absolutely. So that's an example of the illusion of knowledge. You get the illusion of knowledge when you do not check things properly and make sure. And there's a tendency for people to jump on bandwagons when somebody says something when they're seemingly very, very confident about what they're saying. They're
Right.
so confident it must be true. This sort of thing. Snake oil salesmen fall under this same banner.
Yes.
This will cure you of all your ills. You know
Right.
it's the latest product. Oh right, okay, you sound confident. I'm going to believe you, but
Right.
belief isn't good enough. You need to check
Yeah.
and make sure, and that's the
Right.
nature of this so-called great work: is making sure, making absolute certain that God is real. And the only way to do that is to experience God directly, for example. So somebody might tell you, "There's no such thing as God. You're wasting your time." Well, that is the illusion of knowledge. That there's
Yes.
this problem on the planet, that is the biggest problem on the planet, not knowing and thinking they know.
So there's a two. One is not knowing anything somewhat, and the other
Ignorance.
the other way would be thinking know it all. So it's like a
Yeah,
seesaw thing again for the extremes. One end, one
yeah,
over here, or the two columns, so to speak.
yeah,
So pillars. It's the same type of. You're saying the two dilemmas here.
yeah,
The
yeah,
one.
yeah. And they
Go ahead.
always throw the baby out with the bathwater. They
Right.
always do. So they'll tell you, well, the Bible is garbage. It's old language. Don't read it. Well, hang on a minute. There's all sorts of wisdom in there that's really useful. Yeah, but Jesus wasn't a real person, so it's all bollocks. No, no, no. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Don't do that. Be careful. Be very, very careful. Get your tweezers out and tweeze out. Well, that's not quite it. The way that's spoken makes it sound like that, but really it means this, in fact. And all you people who thought it means that, you're all wrong. And the proof that you're wrong is that you're not getting anywhere. About these gurus again, they present themselves as they know everything, and they never want to say, well, I'm not quite sure about that, because all of a sudden they don't sound like a guru anymore. So
Yeah.
there's the presentation thing again, and they tend to convey the illusion of not that they know everything, which is very, very dangerous, because people look up to them and they think, well, this person is fantastic. They know that everything they say is true. I must follow them. Be careful. The whole point of conveying something is so that you become knowledgeable yourself. So you don't have to rely on the teacher anymore. You become the teacher.
You become the teacher, right?
Yeah, and a teacher can only teach things that are genuinely true. So they must find out what is genuinely true and make sure that what is true.
Right.
Yeah, that's why it took me so many years, because it was all about making absolute certain. It takes time to do that.
Yeah, Layla's got a comment here. Actually, she's got a question. She says, does the illusion of knowledge relate to the concept of acceptance also? In other words, I gather simply the person who is looking into this type of thing and understands some things, in other words, this illusion of knowledge, and relates to what I call the concept of acceptance, meaning I accept this. In other words, it's illusion of. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say simply is what she's trying to say simply is, and I think I agree because I've been in the same. I can do this. I've done this, Layla. I'll just be honest with you. I've done this many times. I think I've learned something and knowledge such and such, and then 6 months later, I come to realization that I was wrong. I made a mistake. As again, that's part of growing up, so to speak. I spent. Or I actually got into this particular. I was involved in another particular area, and I spent some money and spent time, quite a bit of time, researching all this, and then I come to the realization that such and such that what this particular this thing was going on was true, but they were not able to share it. In other words, I said, well, then that's a fallacy. In other words, you allowed yourself to get out of this particular situation, but in reality, how do I say it? I've got a senior moment. Basically, yeah. I mean, I just got my head of the horse here. You actually, there are people who have gotten out of such and such the system here, sort of part in the United States, but they cannot talk about it. So then you're not free yourself. See, that's the fallacy. The fallacy simply is if you were free, yes, you've got the benefits, so to speak. But the fallacy simply is you can't talk about it anymore. You can't share anything about it. You see what I'm saying? So that was what I was involved in before I actually was involved with Phil here in the last few months. I came to the realization. I spent over a year approximately in my life looking at this, digging all the time, and then come to the realization simply is, no, this is a fallacy. Yes, it can be done. Yes, I agree. But the fallacy simply is that you can't share that with others. And that's you're not free. The person, is free, you see. So,
I was going to say the word acceptance. For me, the ultimate acceptance is that truth is all there is, and there is an answer to everything. There's an answer to why the universe exists, why it behaves like this, why we're standing on a planet which is spherical, blah, blah, blah. The truth is what actually exists. All the stuff that comes out of people's mouths is effectively hot air and a potential understanding only. That's as far as you can get with somebody else. Everything I'm saying is just a potential for you to take on for yourself and test it for yourself and see, well,
Right.
I'm gonna suck it and see.
Yeah.
Is it
Right.
really, is that correct? Is that really true? And
Try it out.
unfortunately,
In other words,
yeah,
actually, basically legitimate trying it out. Basically, it's like, for example, illustration of poor example, but try this car out. You know, this car runs on, runs on air. Da 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 da. Maybe that's not a good idea, but anyway, we're trying to say something. Try it. In other words, what it is simply, I see it is, in order to get to these things, you have to pursue it, and you're going to make mistakes.
yeah,
That's Layla, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, and even I made many mistakes.
yeah,
Okay, and have cost me time and money. Okay,
yeah,
so but it was a way for me saying it's like running on a track. You have to jump over these obstacles. They have little things here in America. They jump the hurdles,
yes,
and you have to jump these hurdles in order to get to the finish line.
yeah,
You see, and so if you don't jump these hurdles, which is basically learning from what someone else was teaching you and it was false. That's learning. You jump over that hurdle, and then you
yeah,
progress. You go over another hurdle, such and such.
yes, yes,
So that's how you go around the track, so to speak,
yeah,
in your life. And so
yeah,
how it is simply is you want to complete that uh, track. In other words, your life. That's what it's speaking of. And that whole circle you go around on the track, similar to a circle. You are taking opportunities, chances, and yes, you will fail many times. Okay, but you have a lifetime here, and so the lifetime simply is you can still get up and move on. You say, okay, I've learned from this lesson, move on. And so then you go through certain things, and this is going to happen sometime, and people give up. A lot of times people quit, which is not the best thing to do.
that's
When you
right,
quit, you're not going to go around.
that's
You're
right,
not going to make it. You're not going to succeed.
yeah,
And so, anyway, it's the same thing with horses with steeplechase. The same thing. They do
yeah,
that in runners too. You have to jump an obstacle, and that's
yeah,
I look at it simply as what happens in your life. You're going to be let down by all kinds of people.
yeah,
People, even you think your own family, and that type of thing. And you
yeah,
have to get back up. You
yeah,
have to, in order to find the truth.
yeah,
You can't quit.
that's right.
Um,
You can
I
take a
wrote
break.
down. I'll say this one quick, and I'll let you talk. I
That's
wrote
right.
on the here. It says no regrets. No regrets. Meaning
Mm,
simply is I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, "Man, why didn't I do this?" I don't want to have a regret. I don't
yeah,
want to regret that I've lived this life of my life, and I failed at what not failed, but I didn't succeed in what I didn't see the importance of what I was here for. You
right,
see, and so the
right,
whole thing idea of writing it down, saying no regrets, is just a reminder to me. What is your aim here? Is what I talked about yesterday. What are you aiming at? You're aiming at the bullseye. You're not aiming at the whole thing over here. You're aiming for the center, because that's true. That's what it is. In the middle here is the truth. The other stuff is fluff. You see.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead, Phil. Sorry.
Yeah, just to overemphasize this fact that lies do not exist.
Huh.
Lies do not exist. They are nothing more than hot air that come out of people's mouths. What exists is what exists. So it comes to time sometimes where you have to stop listening to other people and just look for yourself. You know, go out into nature, look at it for yourself, and somebody told you something about nature, and you can see, well, that's not true. So
Right.
mostly, what else are they saying that's not true? Why are they telling me something? Why do they want me to agree with them? So this is a problem with the. I wouldn't associate it with the Islamic religion as a whole, but you can associate this with anybody who's religious. They want everybody to agree with them.
Yes,
I'm
because I'll say what I think you're saying. Uh, it's a whole idea that they've been indoctrinated themselves, like I was in the Christian church.
mm,
It's the idea that I am very. Most people in the church are critical of others. They're
mm,
enormously critical, and I see that in my own self, my own spirit.
mm,
But you need to have some critical. thoughts in order to deal with certain things. So you can't suddenly just dismiss it all. Okay.
Yes.
But you can see through what I can see now, being critical and looking at things and saying, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. This doesn't add up. And you got to remember, I went to seminary and was just somewhat like Phil, but I went in a different area. I thought this would be something, and it was a test, I think, in my own life. Would I continue, well, I could get a good job doing this. I can make some money and I maybe could write a book or two and, but it would be a lie. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So, and so she's got here. Yeah, it says, Lato says, thank you, Brant. I guess sometimes knowing what doesn't work can be a more efficient path to finding what does work. Well,
yes.
You chunk it. I call that word, it's a 70s word, but you chunk what is not important. You take what is, there is some evidence of other things out there that have truth in them. Yes, you pull those things and hold on to those, but you chunk the rest.
Yeah.
You say, heck with that. That's not truth there. But that is, you see.
Yeah. I was going to say, everybody, this idea of being critical of others, being religious, and there's a wish for everybody to agree with you, especially with certain kinds of religions, that the more powerful they are, the more people want everybody to conform to their ideas because they think, I'm right, you're wrong, I want you to be right. But when people are wrong, when people are nasty to you, remember, it's only a passing phase. Everybody makes it in the end. Therefore, there's no need to hold any animosity towards anybody, ever.
No, there isn't. No.
Even if they're doing nasty things right now, turn away from that and carry on with your good things, and eventually they will come round. They will. Whatever it takes, even if it takes for their death for them to come round, or a near-death experience, because that changes people overnight, near-death experiences. It's fascinating to know that we can change, we can open our minds and develop and see more and better, and not have everybody agree with us and feel, if you want everyone to agree with you, you must be insecure.
That's the red flag of insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw this, like I was going to say, with my dad, was that basically, and it's not, I'm not putting him down. That's not what it's about. But he was controlling. He controlled my mom. And I saw that. And I'm like, you're insecure.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at a young age. But as later on in life, I said, no, you're insecure because simply as you want to control her. And why do you want to control her? Because you're feeling inferior and you're insecure.
That's right.
Yeah. It's not, I'm not trying to put my dad down. That's just a lesson in life. It's just, I saw that later in life.
Yeah. There's difference between recognizing things as they are and putting people down. Yeah. There's a different attitude. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a question here from Mr. Mensa. Do the demons also make it in the end?
Aha. Now that
I've never thought about that question ever. I've never thought about that, Mr. Mensa. I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
Years ago, I didn't know what a demon was. Now I understand it all too well. The word demon is referring to any manifestation, personal or otherwise, that has nothing to do with divinity, in the sense that an aspect of your brain, one of your noetic forces, in other words, one of the apostles, these are considered to be demons. But that's not all. Right. If you as a person have not ascended and you die and you refuse what comes next, and you simply hang around because you're in purgatory, you are a demon.
Yes.
In fact, the Gnostic texts make this very, very clear. You are either an angel or a demon. There is nothing else. And you're a demon in association with the demonic nature of the physical body that you are associating yourself with. And it's retribution, it's wish for retribution and self-righteousness. This is demonic. So we're all born demons. That quote from the Gospel of John, where it says, you are all children of the devil. Right. Children of the devil are demons. So every single creature born in the universe that is unascended is effectively a demon. See, so I was a demon before I became ascended, but it's just a word to refer to physically oriented. That's all
Yes,
it
it's not
means.
you are a someone that comes out at night, so to speak, and does dirty, evil things to people, so to speak.
That's a
As
demon.
we've been shown on television or movies, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that's a demon. Yeah, that's right. And so most people on earth are demons, but they don't want to hear that because they associate demons with the devil. There is that association, but good people haven't ascended yet as well.
Right.
So it doesn't mean they're demonic in their attitude. It simply means that you have free will and you can choose to be demonic or not. So demonic nature is everything other than what is spiritual. That's all. That's all it refers to. Some people
Yes.
would say that's evil, but if you want to start saying, well, it's evil and hate and using hatred towards it, you're being demonic as well. You're joining their ranks because that's what they do. That's revenge. See,
Right.
see.
Right.
So spiritual nature only looks up at goodness and looks at a person as goodness potential. So I see a person who's acting evil, yes, but they are goodness in potential, even though they're acting evil like a demon at the moment. They are potentially they're potential angel. That person.
Yeah. The part is that they don't know any better. A lot of times they don't know because
Right.
of basically their background. Their
Yeah.
parents treat certain ways, and they think, oh, is life has taken them from a pretty cruel joke. I mean, a joke, but it's very cruel to them,
Mm.
and it's hard for them when I've talked with people in the back and past, and people, women have been raped at a very young age, okay, by their own parents, okay, and your light's flickering
Demonic.
there. Is there something going on over there?
No, it's probably the camera trying to. It's twilight here now because it's I don't know what time it is. Probably 4 o'clock. And the sun is starting to go down, so the camera is having a hard time accepting the exact nature
Okay,
of
I was
light.
just wondering if you're having an out of body or
No, there's no
you're
ghost. There's
having
no ghost
experience
here.
here. Wait a minute, don't leave, don't leave.
No, there are no ghosts here at all. No.
No, I meant it this way. Don't take off yet. We need to. It's ready to take off.
Yeah. So it's a question of sorting through. We have free will. We can behave in a nasty way, and we can change our ways in a moment. We can have an event that challenges us and makes us realize we've been nasty. Yada yada. All these things are demonic, other than the angelic spiritual nature. So there's just that distinction in the scriptures you'll see. But people take it too seriously.
Because we all come from, if we're even parents now, our parents weren't perfect. Let's just be straightforward with you. But a lot of times simply they didn't know any better, or they either simply were harmed in their own lives.
Mm.
And you have to give them grace. You have to understand simply is that, yeah, my parents may have been bad, but I also have to understand they did a lot of good things for me.
Sure.
They did provide food for me to eat and a place to stay. I mean, you think, well, that's basic, but there are places that in this world that parents can't do that. They have a hard time even doing that for their youngsters, their young children. So you have to understand. You have to give grace to yourself, but you also have to give grace to your parents in many ways. You have to say, okay, obviously, this is what I've got to do. I've got to learn certain things. And that's another question I'm going to ask. Since we're talking about it, for example, Phil, do we choose? Like I'm a guy, and do we choose to be a male or female? Do we choose to be a woman the next time we come into this particular place, so to speak, or do we don't choose that? In other words, is that part of because I actually, I'll just be straightforward with you. I don't know how in the world we live right now, it's hard to be a woman. It is. because it's not the same way in some ways it was maybe a couple hundred years ago.
Right.
Uh, Women were seen and put up more on a pedestal in some ways. I'm not saying they were perfect. I'm not saying that, but there were virtues of a woman that
Mm,
men would see the virtues of a woman and who
mm,
they are,
mm,
because they would be the ones that would actually be able to produce children.
mhm.
And that was a big deal on a farm,
Yeah.
because they would allow having sons to be able to work on the property that is on a farm. And that was the way life was. That was a big deal back then, 100, 200
Mm,
years ago.
mm,
So, and we've gone away from that to the whole idea that, that the way the music's talked about these days and sung is detrimental to women. It's just disrespectful in many ways.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, anyway, the question was simply: is, do we choose to become a man in this particular life one time, or do we choose to be a female? Do we have that choice? Do we? Does that make any sense? That question?
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to answer that because looking at near-death experiences, they say you choose your life, which suggests that you choose to be male or female. But funnily enough, I mean, where do you want to get your information from? Reading Walter Russell, for instance, he goes on quite a bit about how when you reincarnate, you become the opposite sex each time, which, which
Ah,
which doesn't conform to the idea that it's all about personal choice. So who do you want to listen to? And at the end of the day, I don't know what we can say about that, because near-death experiences have very different experiences sometimes. Some of them say, yeah, Jesus is real. I've met him and I've met God.
right, right,
Others will say, no, Jesus has nothing to do with it. I met my sibling who died 10 years ago in heaven, and we had a lovely conversation. And he said, you don't need all that religion. God doesn't care what religion you follow. Just be true to yourself. So,
right.
so there are these great not dichotomies between different ideas, but it, you need a pair of tweezers. It comes down to this being very, very succinct and very, very particular about the nature of truth. That there's an aspect of it where you find what you expect. There's a certain
Right.
expectation that is comforting to you. For instance, you don't want to die and simply be in the abyss. Some people do experience that. There are quite a few of them say, well, I was just in this black void for a while and I thought about all these things and I had a conversation with God, and they're in the abyss. There's no
Right.
question. They describe it exactly as I experienced it. They don't see the cloud, but
Right.
you get you fill out your understanding of there are certain expectations that get fulfilled, but there are certain objective natures to the spirit world that are automatic that you can't avoid. Judgment, for instance, comparison, this sort of thing, the fact that you have to reincarnate to achieve something more. These are objective truths that we can't avoid.
Right.
Apparently, we're almost forced to reincarnate on Earth. A lot of people don't want to reincarnate on Earth because it's so harsh. And they say, well, it's the hardest planet to be on. Well, okay, you can take their word for it, but a lot of things we cannot verify. So
Right.
to know if you're a male or female in your next life, I would say it doesn't really matter personally.
Right.
I couldn't care less if I'm male or female in this life. It makes no difference to me, apart from the fact that I am male and I have to deal with the male things. I mean, in my
Right.
youth, I actually thought I prefer women. I prefer the company of women because they're
Right.
much more understanding and sensitive. Whereas
Yes.
men
Yeah.
want to pretend that they're perfect and the
Right.
alpha male all the time, and I can't stand that competition. I haven't got time for that. I prefer women, so I wanted to be a woman. See,
Yeah.
I actually believed that when I was 4 years old, I thought I was a girl because my best friend was a girl. And
Oh.
we knocked about everywhere in our road together, and we were like one. We were absolutely brother. It's like brother and sister, and I just assumed that I was the same as her.
Oh.
Even
Okay. So
even
you
though
didn't
I
even.
had a
Okay. So you didn't really. Okay. I see. I understand. I follow what you're saying, because you're basically you could uh with a woman is there's a quality about them that basically you can actually talk with them
yeah.
in a way that basically you're comforted, and they understand you. There's there's a way. There's also a depth with them. They're not trying. Some, I'm not saying all are, but I'm saying there are some that basically allow you to be yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I find it simply is that men try to they get caught up in their there's a harshness of men.
Yeah.
If you think about, I remember shaking a guy who his hand, and he was a lumberjack. This guy was he had his hands were tremendously bigger than mine, and when he shook my hands are very small, folks.
Mm.
Okay, these are very small hands.
Mm.
So that tells me that I was not supposed to be. Someone said that meant that you were not meant to be in the working world, so to speak. Well, yeah,
Mm.
because I only have my fingers are actually some of my fingers are shorter than actually are near of a woman's hand. But the
Mm.
point simply is, I shook his hand and I'm like, let go. He was so his hand force was so hard, he was crushing my hand.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
I know you're here.
Yeah.
You know, because my fingers were not used to that. His hands were rough. My hands are not rough.
Mm.
You know, he's got calluses on his hands, such and such.
Mm.
Well, that reveals in reaction revealed a lot about him in some ways. He was very callous, very hard. He was, rough,
Mm.
personality wise. He was a
Mm.
threat to visit, his daughters. You know, if you were a man and had interest in his daughters,
Mm.
you got the message simply is you don't cross him.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, and that was not what is. What I'm trying to say simply is that men are again get caught up in their own. I've got to be this way. And they get it, and I get it. They got it from their parents. Their dad probably spread it to them. You got to be a rough guy. We got to take care of the farm here. Da 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 da. We got, yeah. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
But the point simply is, I remember that. But this also reveals a lot about men. Men can be very callous, very hard. I know it all. I know it all. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah.
None of us know it all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I find women more nurturing, more nicer to be with.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
They have to be. I mean,
Yeah.
have to be, but I mean, they care for their children. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have any patience. I'm sorry. I took care one time. A couple asked me to take care of their daughter, and I said, okay. And I did, I was just being a babysitter, so to speak. They trusted me. I wasn't going to do anything wrong to that child. But when I had to change the diaper, and I did it, the problem was the child didn't stop crying, and I didn't know what to do. I decided to try to sing a song. I tried to find something very soothing. I felt frustrated as a man not being able to calm that child down.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I couldn't solve that problem as a man. Because I didn't know what it meant to be a nurturing person in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Layla's got another question here. I think she does, or has a statement. Speaking of twilight, is there a significance to the time of day in relation to the spiritual? Many cultures and traditions speak of sunrise and sunset.
Yeah. That's it. I would say that's symbolic because sunrise and sunset is between day and night. And it's like a balance point that we were referring to earlier, the point between the two extremes, like equinox. Sunrise at equinox is there were 12 hours of night before the sun rose, and now you're going to have 12 hours of day. And that characterizes the cloud of heaven, which is the balance between spirit and energy. So it's an association with the idea of balance and heaven. The gaining of heaven is emphasized in all these things in the esoteric world. They'll emphasize dawn and dusk and say these are very important parts of the day because they relate to the concept of the balance of heaven directly because of that. So in the ancient world, people made loads of associations like that. They knew about the cloud of heaven and they looked to commemorate the idea of balance in everything around them. So they would commemorate the dawn and the dusk as opposed to, any time during the day. Illumination actually is associated with high sun at noon as well. But that depends on how you apply it. So if we look at the arc of the sun, that represents your life, and in your middle of your life, you should have learned enough to ascend, and now you're going to spend the rest of your life as an angel. You are an angel once you ascend, and then you die physically, and the sun, of course, goes down into the underworld and comes back, completing the circle. And when it completes the circle and rises, the association there with heaven would be equinox. So that they take the full circle of the arc of the sun, and its new rising at equinox as a sign that you've completed the great work, and now you're a risen angel. You've ascended from physical nature. So it's just association, I feel. I haven't found any other association than that. So it's just to associate with balance. The same thing applies with rocks. When you go somewhere in the middle of nowhere, people have balanced rocks on top of each other.
Yes.
Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have.
The Canadian band Rush had an album called Test for Echo, and they had a picture of these balancing rocks. Yes. And the idea is that the balancing of these rocks is utterly impossible. And yet it is, you can see it, but it seems impossible. That's exactly what they say about generating heaven. It's impossible. And therefore you can only do it when you have God's help. It's impossible by yourself. So you must unify the energy with spirit, because you are the part that comes from the energy world. You need God from the spiritual world to come and balance it out for you.
Yes.
So God is involved in that sense, and the balance then becomes heaven, which is the halfway between you and God. It's your access to God that's permanent, as it were, the fullness of your own self. Yeah. So I'd associate dusk and dawn with this idea of balance. Yeah.
I'm going to ask something. I don't know if Layla, I'm just curious, is she referring to what she's asking here? I'm going to ask something maybe a little bit go into that direction. Is it also what she's talking about, the significance of what I would call, when we are born? In other words, when we are born a certain time, this is again based upon astrology, that to do with the time of the day, either at night or in the daytime, so to speak, such and such. Is that and maybe I'm going off a tangent here, so to speak. And I'm guessing that she speaks also. She says many cultures and traditions speak of sunrise and sunset. I was kind of curious, simply as kind of to me yeah, you're right, because it is an emphasis actually in even in Christianity, you do see that, because you have a sunrise service, and people are unaware that they're actually, when they're doing that, they're actually worshiping the sun, S-U-N, because they go up, and I'm being particular here, but that's when they actually, this is like Easter Sunday, they'll have a sunrise service, and I'm like, but you are actually there participating basically on, I would call sun worship, S-U-N. Am I correct in looking at that way?
Well, to be honest, I don't think anyone has ever worshipped the sun other than Akhenaten.
Oh.
Ever.
Okay, let's go ahead and expand on the Akhenaten to explain what do you mean by that.
Because just because if Christianity wants to put paganism down, they will pretend that the people who were pagan in the past were literally worshipping the sun as if it was God, but that's not correct. They were simply using the natural world as a symbolic metaphor to understand their inner world, the inner nature of developing into becoming angels. Right. And that's all it is. Just as we mentioned a moment ago, that the dawn represents the halfway point between night and day, just as the cloud of heaven represents the halfway point between spirit and energy, which is like night and day. Spirit is daytime. It's lit up. It is illuminated. It's understanding. It's knowledge. It's knowing. God knows everything. But physical nature is always ignorant in the darkness. Right. So heaven closes the gap between the two. So in the ancient past, people did not worship the sun. That is a fallacy. Nobody worshipped the sun. They simply took the natural world as a an outer world metaphor for the inner world that they needed to acclimatize themselves to and overcome.
Oh, okay.
So then you get in 1400 BC or whenever it was, the pharaoh Akhenaten, who had an inferiority complex with great insecurity because he was shunned in his youth until he was 18 from public view. The royal family must appear to be perfect, and he had Marfan syndrome. So his father kept him away from public view because he's not looking perfect. He looks a bit weird.
Right.
How come your son? How come you're the king? You're supposed to be perfect with a perfect family, but your son looks weird. What happened there? What happened to your authority for being perfect? See, there's a misnomer. And he knew the public. He knew the public were looking on them as the perfection family. You know, the ultimate family, like the royal family is presented as the ultimate family.
Right.
So, and then he, all of a sudden, his dad dies and he's pharaoh, just like that, overnight. He's about 18 years old with an inferiority complex, and he's never been in public properly. So now he's going. He was a narcissistic, nasty piece of work, Akhenaten, and he decided to destroy the entire culture of the country by closing every single temple there is and readdressing the religious content of the country as solar worship. And he knew that by doing this, that he would create in his populace a sense that they were never going to be good enough, and he would always be above them as royalty. But he wasn't an illuminate. Yeah, he didn't want.
He felt he was threatened by those who may be superior in intellect or spiritual, whatever.
Yeah,
he was threatened by that, so he had to actually blot that out.
Yes. Yeah, the people in the temples who became illuminates as well, but couldn't be king because you could only have one king. They would have a higher authority than him, and he knew that, so he had to wipe them out. So that's what he did, and he pretended that the sun in the sky was now the deity, literally basically saying deity is outside of you, not inside of you. You are worthless scum. I am the go-between between my God and you scum. See, this is a nasty piece of work,
and that has continued since then.
Effectively, yeah, it set the stage for that
whole stage for the royalty to be what they are somewhat today.
Not quite so. I mean, they might use that to some extent, but I wouldn't put our royal families down. You see, in Europe, our royal families are respectable, decent people. They're very sensible, decent people. And we don't pursue that Akhenaten model anymore. I know some people in this conspiracy world would suggest that is the case, but I would disagree, because royalty is an edifice, not a person. It doesn't matter who the royal person is, as long as the edifice functions correctly as royalty, as if it's the authority of God on earth, with justice, sense, and law. These things are necessary for humanity, because humanity are bestial. They need a standard to live by, and royalty provides that standard, because
because that's part. It sets an example of what society should be like. It should be justice. The law should be equal to all.
Yes.
Type of thing. It shouldn't be biased towards a certain group of people and then not this other group of people. You see, and so that creates, when you do that, you create murmuring, and you unsettle everything, because people are looking around here and says, this is not justice. This is injustice. Why are we being treated this way, such and such? So this is how, because what you're doing is actually, when you do that, you're opening a can of worms. Even if you're a leader, you're asking for trouble.
I do believe that the so-called injustices we see today are produced by finance, not royalty. People blame royalty for financial motivations. So the oligarchs who run our country, let's say, are making bad decisions. They're deciding things in their favor, not the general populace, because their only interest is in finance, not royal understanding of God's authority, let's say. It's a different kettle of fish, a different kind of person. So a man with too much money is dangerous in this world. But a
Yes,
royal
it is.
family is far less dangerous in this world because they run to a certain standard that doesn't pursue that kind of finance,
Right.
as it were. It's a
Yeah.
different mentality. I think people need to make that distinction, that they don't realize that oligarchs run a lot of things with finance, and they never appear on the news, so we don't know who they are.
They're behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I mean,
puppet masters behind the scenes.
that's the way they work, because they
Yeah,
don't want anybody to know who they are. I mean,
yeah.
you can see that. That's just it's a way of cover, so to
Yeah,
speak.
they would be killed. They would be killed on the street if they appeared
Yes,
in the
they
street
would
and we
be.
knew what they were. Yeah, they would be killed. They'd be lynched without
Yes.
question, without question. But people don't know who's responsible for what, because the media just blurs everything and pretends
Media is
it's them.
always all over the place. This is, it goes from one extreme to the other extreme, back all the time.
Yeah, sure.
They do it to cause confusion.
Yeah. So it's a question of studying what really goes on the planet, and it's pretty obvious that finance is pushing things in the wrong direction here and there. Anyway.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of ways what's happening in my country, and actually the last 5 or 6 years, there's been here in my country, there's enormous inflation taking place. They're spending money they don't have,
Right.
and we do know, if I understand correctly, economics. If you don't have a standard like gold and silver backing the fiat money or paper money, you're going to have a major problem, and that problem is going to have inflation. And inflation is a way that destroys everyone's. It destroys their wealth. It destroys their way of actually providing for themselves.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah.
I see is causing by that. So bankers, whatever you want to call it, I want to ask if there are other questions, please ask now, because we're over 2 hours.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this conversation. They really have. Appreciate. I've been having a good time today. Appreciate all that's here. It's great to have people here. I love to have questions. There are no dumb questions, folks. There really aren't.
Yeah.
What? And I had it here in my head here. What are some good books or not Reformation, but books that you could recommend for people to check out? Or is there ways of actually, I'm not saying books are going to solve the problem. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to help people be able to hone in to more towards the truth. We've talked about, and you have, I think you would definitely recommend the non-Almighty scriptures for sure to read.
Right, they're very tricky to understand, though. So, I mean, they confirm a lot of the proper interpretations of the biblical material. For example, that wasn't included. With that contrast, you get a much better view. I actually explain that in my books that they can download for free, that they can see for themselves quickly. And my books are designed to be read very quickly, so you don't have to spend too much time on them, because they're very succinct. The number one religious type book I would recommend is the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
That's the number one book, because it's immediately accessible, and it goes extremely deep, very quickly, and in a very light-hearted manner. It's not heavy, this book. It is very, very pleasant to read. It's a joy to read.
Is there? I know when I checked at the library, there are different editions. Which edition? There are different writers of this particular book. Is there one? That's where I've got lost at in some ways. Is there a way of knowing which edition you should get that actually is as well worth reading?
Any edition of the Gita will do. It's a very short book. It's not the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is a much more extended version of this. You don't need to read. This is the most important, succinct content. In fact, there's only one passage in this book that you would need to read. The rest of it just reiterates the same kind of ideas.
It's the same.
Same
story. Okay.
So that would be the religious book I'd recommend. I'd also recommend, if you want to appreciate reality, definitely have a look at Special Relativity, Anybody can understand it. It's not complicated. It's very, very simple. Once you realize that time is relative, it changes your perspective of things greatly, because it means that that out there time passes differently. And this idea of timelessness, see, spiritually, all is well. That's the funny thing. When you meet God and you're in this heavenly state, all is well. It doesn't matter what wars are going on planet Earth. It has nothing to do with you. All is well. Spiritually, all is well forever. There's no problems. See, people, they only see what happens on Earth and they think, oh, God, existence is terrible because of what happens on Earth. But look at how small Earth is. There are trillions of planets. It's just a trivial planet over there that we have individuated free will to use on. So it causes the greatest learning for an individual. That's all it's about. It doesn't matter what wars are going on. You know, it's what you learn from your personal life that counts. Because you when you leave, it's just you that leaving. You leave the planet behind, and the planet carries on without you. Right. So why does what goes on the planet Earth have anything to do with you?
And when you would think this simply is like, for example, when you say there's war going on, but in reality, there are people being killed. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you are been given grace and mercy that by God that you can still be pursuing the truth. We are still being able to do that, and we're examples of that, of us actually talking right now in real time about deeper things. And it's not to benefit, it's to benefit others. It's not to benefit our, it's not to benefit, we're not, I'm not getting any money from Phil, whatever. That's not, nothing that has nothing to do with this whole thing here. Okay. Has nothing to do with money.
I'm not here getting customers.
No, Phil's not a salesman. Okay.
No.
Neither. But the idea simply is, I think what's so neat about this is that we can talk about spiritual questions you're asking, because a lot of us don't have any idea sometimes know what to even ask sometimes. Yes, that's true. But any question that's asked, it helps others. It's not just for yourself. When you ask a question here, I never thought about it that way. I never even considered that. From me, someone in the audience asking a question here, and suddenly it's like, I'm glad they asked that question.
Yeah.
I'm glad they asked that question, because that opened my world. It opened up a different perspective in what's going on.
Right.
That's the beauty of all what's taking place here. It's not just me and you or It's an opportunity for anyone to actually learn from this, because Phil, as far as I know, is the only illuminated one. I don't know of anybody else, folks. I'm not putting Phil on a pedestal here.
No.
That this is an opportunity of a lifetime.
It is actually, yeah.
It is. It is a very, very critical thing. And you're deciding, those that don't come in, that's their choice. But the point is, you have opportunity here that not my generation, my parents' generation never had.
That's right.
They never had this opportunity.
That's right.
Do you understand the validity of that, the value of all that?
Yeah.
The opportunity we have just to ask these things.
Yeah.
And to help others, pull them up. Yes, they understand certain things spiritual, but to pull them up by the hand and actually see my brother and my sister, I see this. It makes some sense. Now, so you've made a step back up Jacob's ladder. Instead of coming down, now you're going back up.
That's right. Absolutely right.
This is an opportunity of a lifetime.
It is.
We've all who is here has been blessed with the opportunity here. Not again to grandiose Phil, no. But I know that when Phil was here Monday, this is true. We had talking, and yes, I remember certain things that Phil tells me. But when you're suddenly asked questions, I'm like, I'm basically dumbfounded, because I don't know it all. I don't have a reservoir of all knowledge here, guys. Yeah. I'm just a vehicle here asking Phil questions. I'm
Yeah.
just someone who wants to know, just like the rest of the audience here is. That's what
Mm,
this is about. So my
mm,
point simply is that this is the opportunity of a lifetime
yeah.
for all people, and that's why it's being, I record it here, it's put back out. I don't care who watches or whatever. It's for
Yeah.
all people. You
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
uh,
And
I'm not here to get. You see, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, I'll always be here till the moment I die,
Right,
available to talk to anyone about anything to do with this. I'll always make myself available because that's basically why I'm here. You know?
right. Uh, and also, I was going to say something is when you get my channel here, such and such, I'm on. You can. It doesn't bother me when you share my videos of YouTube with Phil Langdon. You can
Mm,
do that. I want you
mm,
to do that,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
You
On
see,
on that note, I've heard that some people want to copy my work. Well, I actually encourage that.
right?
I would encourage that. If somebody wants to copy my book and pretend it's theirs, I don't care. As long as the information is correct, get it out there and give people a chance to see something like this, because it's a very rare thing.
But don't take credit for it. You need to give, basically say this is a guy who I got this from Phil Langdon,
Mm,
such and such. Don't take credit for it. Just say this is something I've learned. I've got a
yeah,
couple of questions here from Mr. Menza.
yeah.
Um, Question. I thought about this last night. I didn't write it down, Mr. Menza, so I'm glad you're sharing it. Can Phil now access the Akashi records? Can you do that, Phil?
I could do that, but I don't. I don't want to. You see, because I learned a few years ago that the kind of things that we want to be talking about do not involve that. And I don't want to be spending my time exploring Akashic records, telling people, well, 1,000 years ago, this is what really happened, because
Ah.
it's just pointless. I find that
Well,
pointless.
that's like the whole thing with the Atlantis, and
Yeah,
that's the past.
pointless.
That's the past. I mean, it's
Yeah,
somewhat relevant, yes, and it's important, but it's not the most important thing in the now. It's
yeah,
not.
and you're going to make loads of mistakes. So the biggest mistake in those terms is when people misinterpret the Great Flood. The Great Flood is not an event that occurred on Earth at all. It has nothing to do with that. And yet you
Right.
got Graham Hancock, who's very well known, making documentaries about, well, there was this Great Flood in the Bible. It was 10,500 BC. This is the Great Flood it's talking about. Here's some evidence. I'm going to waste 2 hours of your time on this. You know,
Yeah. Well,
bless
there's
him. He's
John
a nice
Test.
guy.
Also, the one. There's another one that basically is it John Test is the other guy who talks about it. Ankinoki in the past. I'm trying to remember. We talked about him a couple. I guess it was last week. Who's the guy who talks about Ankinoki? John Lash.
Ankh-Morpork.
John
Oh,
Lash.
John Lash, yeah. He misinterprets Sophia. He doesn't realize that you become Sophia. He thinks Sophia is some person in history or some lady that existed at some point in the past and that she
Right.
did something terrible. But he doesn't understand what that means because he has no reference.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he has no reference to what the reality of that is. He doesn't understand the nature of Sophia. And every person I've heard and looked at talking about Sophia doesn't know what they're talking about.
And the sad fact is simply is people like that are selling their books and making
Yeah,
money off of them and
yeah.
keeping people at a standstill. They're not growing. They're not moving in the right direction spiritually. It's
Yeah,
not.
because as soon as you make a mistake on identifications like that, everything else as a consequence of your identification is going to be misleading and wrong.
Right. Right.
You have to start correctly and carry on correctly. If you start with an incorrection, everything is going to be wrong that comes from it. See, that's
Yeah,
the
but
problem.
you start out with the wrong premise. You're already on wrong ground.
Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna. Another question by Mr. Menza is: Can Phil return to the abyss at will?
I'm in the abyss already. I'm permanently in the abyss. The abyss has become my mind. It becomes your mind. Strangely
So it's
enough.
not something outside of you.
No, there's no need to leave to ping out of my body again to find the abyss because it's already been established. There's no need to see it again because it's part of me, as it were. I know it. Once you see the black infinite void, it's just a black infinite void. You know, there's no need to go back into that state to leave your body, if you see what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
So when I pass on, I won't need to be there again because it's the root of our existence. I might find myself there and I'll enter the cloud of heaven. But you see, there's much more to the afterlife than that. That's just an aspect of it. It's already part of me, so I don't need to go finding it again. What he's saying is, can I just close my eyes and just find myself in the abyss? No, you don't. You don't bother. There's no need to do such a thing at all. I don't need to look at the cloud again to remember what it looks like. I know exactly what it looks like.
Right.
It's as if it happened last night, but it was 9 years ago. I remember it crystal clear, like it was yesterday. So there's no need to repeat that, as it were.
Okay.
See. There's things what Mr. Mensa is asking about, you know, the Akashic records and can you see the abyss? This sounds like some of the things that come out of some Indian gurus who go on and on about being able to access the Akashic record.
Right.
Now they're on YouTube.
They never actually reveal anything, do they?
Yeah, the problem with that is they're going to say, I access the Akashic record, like Nityananda, who is a fake guru. He says that. He says, I accessed the Akashic record and I found out that the contents of the Bhagavad Gita actually occurred and all this sort of nonsense when it's just a metaphor. It's just it's an expanded riddle.
Right.
But he won't tell you that. And so people can fool you because you have no way of verifying what they're saying. That's the problem with that kind of thing, I find. So I tend to stick to things that are self-evident and the logic of it speaks for itself. So you can see, oh, I see. It's about understanding, not about being a show off to say I can do these amazing things. I'm a Superman. You know, that's just pointless, I find.
Yeah, there's a guy here in America. His name was Edgar Casey.
I know Edgar Casey very well. Yeah, I'm very familiar with him.
He's the one I think basically. I've got a book here somewhere of his. You know, I got into that a long time ago. But what I'm going to say is, my point was simply is that, you know, his was to do how to deal with maybe how to help heal people. That is his perspective. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just saying simply is that he's a major figure of basically where people get the idea of the Akashi record. That's you see, so
that would be like his function as a person on Earth, let's say. So I don't know where he's come from. He may well have been an incarnated angel, who knows? But what he did was quite useful. My mum found him very useful. She's used some of his remedies, for instance, and they work. So that accessing the Akashic record for that kind of thing to be a sort of spiritual doctor can be very useful. The thing is, it has to be your calling. So my calling is to be speaking in these terms and not to be doing that, because doctors can handle most things like that anyway. You don't need somebody to do that all the time. Right. It's not that important, and and to prevent people from dying, there's a wish to prevent people from dying, which is nonsense. People die. You've got to accept that. It's part of life. You don't have to. You cannot prevent it. I often I don't laugh, but I find it odd when I hear that people, they're 70 years old. They've had a tragic accident, and everyone thought they were going to die, but they've come through, and now they've got a new lease of life. And I'm thinking, your new lease of life is going to allow you to progress more. But it turns out all they're doing is, I can drink more tea now. How wonderful. It's like, well, oh, God.
No, it's actually God's goodness, again, offering grace to people. Again, extending His grace.
It gives them an opportunity to do something even greater, but all they do is settle back into what they're doing and carry on, like George Bestie, the footballer. He had a liver transplant because he was an alcoholic. And instead of stopping drinking and having a healthier life, it allowed him to carry on drinking.
Right. What a sad story. That's true. It's really sad that people, I remember, visiting my dad, his latter part of his life. And I remember the idea simply is that he would watch the 700 Club, which I Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it.
Okay, it's Pat Robertson, such and such, and he was glued to that television. I'm looking at him saying, "What are you doing?" I mean,
Yeah.
I don't say anything to my dad in some ways because I was taught to respect him, but I'm like, you're wasting your time here.
Right.
It could be better. It would actually be better for you to be outside, Dad, and just being in nature, hearing the birds sing, stuff like that. Just something simple. Um,
Mm.
to appreciate that. But
Mm.
instead, you're uh, you're being gullible in some ways, which we
Mm.
all are gullible. And
Mm.
these people are put on pillars, on pedestals, so to speak, and they're seen
Mm.
as, oh yes, yes, this guy's he's a preacher, such and such. And it's like, yeah,
Mm.
but he's a politician too. He's ran
Mm.
for office, political office here in the United States, if you know
Yeah.
that. And so it's like, no, no, no. He's just making money. He's just making money, type
Yeah.
of thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, yeah, don't knock a good old cup of tea. I didn't know that Mr. Mensah was actually in England. I didn't know
Oh,
that.
right.
Um, so I'm the only American here.
Oh,
Because
oh yeah.
uh, Layla
Layla's
is
in England,
Layla's from England.
Buckinghamshire.
You're from England. So
Yeah.
I'm being, as American, I'm the only one here.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
um, but and you tell us when you want to quit because we're actually at the 2:35 minute mark. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to say something, guys. If you don't have a question at this moment, you need to put it in. If not, we're going to probably sign off here in the next
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so sound like a true Englishman, Mr. Mensah. Well, I'm trying to figure out what Mensa means. What does Mensa mean? Mensa. I don't know what that means, guys. I don't know.
It's the intelligentsia club, the IQ club. If you have an
Oh,
IQ above a certain level, you join Mensa.
I never heard. Okay, all right. Says he is. He says he's located in Southport, which I don't know where that is. Just
Right.
north of Liverpool. I do know where
Right.
Liverpool
Right.
is.
Yeah. That's up north.
So Southport is further north. It's not in Scotland. It's still in England, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Some of my favorite people up north. Yeah. Up north is better than down south. It is. It is.
Okay. What do you mean by that? That's kind of interesting.
People are different. People are.
Oh yeah, they're here. Yeah. Yeah. There's a big difference here in the South where I live at. We don't like Yankees, and they don't like Southern. They don't like Southern. So the idea I was talking to a guy yesterday. I was getting some raw milk, which is milk from a dairy cow. I mean dairy, yeah, from a farmer instead of from the grocery store. And we were talking. He was telling me something. He says, "Yeah, there's what's happening where I'm living at. There's an influx of people from up north coming here. They're what he calls them Yankees.
Yeah.
And the idea what a Yankee is simply he believes in government. He believes in the idea we need to have government in all aspects. And as me being in the South, no, we don't. We can take care of ourselves. It's our responsibility.
Right.
So there's this whole diet, and we're told that we also talk slower. We have a drawl. Well, everybody has a drawl. People from up north, they talk differently too, and people out west talk differently. So everybody has a different way of quote unquote how they communicate. Like for example, in the South we say we're fixing something. I'm fixing to go to the store.
Right.
Okay, I'm fixing to do this. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other word for frustration is aggravated. We're aggravated about the situation here. I'm aggravated.
Right.
Okay. And we're not mad, we're just aggravated. Okay.
Right.
And it's just and we say, and I think there's other things really is we say y'all come on down.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all.
Mm-hmm.
You what it is you all. But up north you say you guys.
Right. Right.
So it's just a difference of the way people talk. It's not.
Yeah, sure. Same here. Yeah, that's right.
And so I was just thinking when you said this simply is that people up there, up north and up south, you're saying that people are actually, the further north, you're saying that they're actually inclined to be a little bit more intelligent than those in the south is what you're probably telling me.
Here, people are nicer up north. that they're more friendly up north.
Oh, that would be yeah, we would say simply is this. Yeah, a Yankee is direct. In other words, he'll tell you if he doesn't like you or not. He will.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
A Southerner will do the opposite and say he like you, but in reality, he's not being honest. He'll stab you in your back too.
Right.
Okay. So it's just like, okay, it's nice, such and such. And I remember we just talked about this north-south thing. Even that same thing happened in Germany when I was taking a class in college and taking German language. The professor told me, yeah, the south part of Germany is much slower, and people are much more kinder than the people up north.
Right.
And it actually it does make sense because people are not on the clock as much as it is up north, even here.
Yeah, less stress. Less stress.
Less stress, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I find it simply is probably maybe a generalization, but people who live in a lot of cities are far more stressful than people who live in the countryside.
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
I think that has a lot to do with nature itself. That it has a different vibration, so to speak. So,
yeah, right.
So we're going to conclude this, but I want to ask one other thing. And you tell me yay or nay, because I don't know. Is this? I'm going to ask if this is okay first. Is this okay? Because I'm going to ask simply: do you want to give people your email address or not?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's actually on my YouTube channel.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'm trying to make sure so I cover the bases. So if anybody who is in the show or later on, and you're not here with us for a month, you could send a question to Phil, and he would try to answer to you. For you.
Absolutely. I don't get emails. Put it that way. It's very quiet.
You don't get any emails at all?
No, not really. Not really. Nobody bothers with me.
People trying to sell you stuff like here in America. It's like they get your email and they
no.
Hey, I hear. Yeah, that's what happens. They get your email. You share an email somewhere. Someone takes that email and then puts it in public.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, you're getting these. Whatever. But Mr. Menza has a smile about that. It says lots of luck. I guess it's lots of laughs, I should say. And then Layla says, I hope that a metaphor, lots of laughs. So we're going to conclude the show, 2 hours and 41 minutes. And I appreciate all being here. I appreciate Layla being here, Mr. Menza. Appreciate others who were in here earlier. I think we had 4 people in here at one time. I appreciate those being here. And I'll let you know when Phil is available again. But if you ever want to converse with him, he's got an email on his YouTube channel, which is simply called Phil Langdon. And you can write him.
It's actually phil.langdon27@gmail.com. So, yeah, just to let you know.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Well, I really hate to do this. I hate to part ways. I mean,
yes.
I really do, because I enjoy doing this a lot, Phil. And I'm glad that others participate, and the more the merrier in some ways, because I enjoy the Mr. Menza being here, and Mr. Menza says I appreciate you and myself, and Layla's also said that.
Thank you.
It's a nice little group here.
Yeah.
It allows freedom for people to ask questions, such and such, and have laughs, and more than laughs, I should say. We learn something here.
Yeah.
And so all this information I've always offered here on my channel is, you can copy it. I mean, you can copy it and put it on your YouTube channel, such and such, or Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever said that, but I want to make that clear now, because I've done how many 8 or 9? I think it's 8 or 9 times shows we've done together on YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And so, you're welcome to do that. In order for others to see the truth, it's vitally important we do this. And I do love you, Phil. I really appreciate you.
Thanks. Same. Thank you.
And I'll miss you.
I
really will. I'm being straightforward. I will miss you, Phil, for a month, because I don't have anyone to talk about spiritual things here, and I've
Mm,
shared all the time, and very few people even chime in and say anything, which
mm.
is okay.
Yeah,
It's fine.
sure.
I don't take it personally, but
Yeah.
it it is a blessing, truly a blessing to be able to just to talk about these deeper things.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Thank you
So,
very much.
and I know you're going to be busy, so um,
Mm.
whenever you think about me, you just send me a little email, say I'm still alive, doing okay, such and such.
Okay.
Just
Will
to make
do.
sure. And again, thank you for all being here,
Mm,
and and also wish you guys since it's in December, a Merry Christmas also,
mm.
and a Happy New Year to
Yeah,
everybody.
sure. Yeah.
Layla says here, um, she says thank you, myself and Phil, and then she says much love and gratitude to all. So,
Yeah.
and it's
Well,
good to have a female in here. It's
yes, it is nice. Yeah,
very
it
much
is.
good to have a female in here, Layla.
Yeah.
So, so at this point, we'll sign off. And
Okay.
again, thank you again for all being here. Again, we appreciate everyone that's been here. You take care.
Hmm. You too.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Brant. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Phil. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care and have a good Christmas.
All right. Thank you very much, Phil. Sound like a repeating thing here. All right, guys. Have a great day. Um, Again, like I said, this is offered for everybody. I don't charge anything. Just do it. Just share the information. It's very vital. And maybe we can help others see the truth here. Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye bye.